Chapter 2877. I got it. A king who was well versed in Buddhism seemed to have thought of something. With a serious expression, he said slowly, I once saw a record of the Emperor of Emptiness in an ancient book. That record described a huge battle. The Emperor of Emptiness released a secret technique that allowed him to avoid almost all of the enemy's attacks. That secret technique was called all Dharma without self. All Dharma without self. These words caused a huge commotion in Sky Tribute Square. Another emperor glanced at the figure hiding in the void on the battlefield and said in a deep voice, this secret technique has touched upon the profound meaning of space. That's why the kid is able to hide in the void and avoid the attacks of the 18 supreme skills. The so-called void referred to both the void and space. And the formation of a grotto heaven was to open up a grotto heaven space. Although Su Zimo could not open up a space of his own, he could use this secret technique to hide in the void and enter a state of selflessness, making him immune to all attacks. In a sense, this secret technique had already reached the level of the grotto heaven realm. How can this be? Wu Shuiqing frowned, his expression turning ugly. All Dharma without self. Isn't it too terrifying for a true spirit to control such a secret technique? Who can defeat him? Not necessarily. The Chi Dragon King suddenly said, all Dharma without self is strong, but it's not to the point where it's invincible. At the end of the day, this secret technique is just a way to avoid attacks. The kings understood what the Hornless Dragon King meant. If it was a one-on-one fight, the effect of this secret technique would not be great. At most, it could only be used to dodge one attack. But coincidentally, in that attack just now, there were 18 Supreme True Spirits attacking at the same time, releasing 18 Supreme Divine abilities. Only in this way could the effects of the Anatta Dharma be unleashed to the extreme. The kings were shocked and suddenly came to a realization. What happened just now did not seem to be a coincidence. When Wu Xing had bewitched everyone and gathered the other Supreme True Spirits to attack, Su Zimo had not stopped him. He had only allowed it to develop, resulting in the current situation. In other words, it was very likely that Su Zimo had intentionally led this scene. What a deep scheme. Many kings were speechless. To be able to remain so calm under this kind of situation and scheme against so many Supreme True Spirits, this kind of thinking was truly terrifying. However, everyone thought about it again. Even if Sword Realm Su Zhu managed to avoid the 18 Supreme Sacred Arts, he still had to face the attacks of the 18 Supreme True Spirits. What was he trying to do? Could it be? A bold thought flashed through the minds of many kings, causing them to jump in fright. At this moment, a change had occurred on the battlefield. The 18 Supreme True Spirits stood in the air, frowning as they searched for the source of the Sanskrit chants. A wave of uneasiness surged in their hearts. The scene before him was truly bizarre. At this moment, Wu Xing cast a spell in his hand and pointed at the center of his eyebrows. Two rays of dim light suddenly surged out of his eyes and landed in the center of the battlefield not far away. Two streaks of dim light shot out, and a silhouette appeared in the center of the battlefield. Someone's here. The other 17 Supreme True Spirits were startled as well. The silhouette of the figure gradually became clearer and appeared under countless gazes. It was Su Zimo who had just disappeared. When the surrounding crowd saw this scene, it caused a wave of exclamations. Lin Xuanzhen, Long Li, Mu Lian, and the others were surprised and overjoyed. On the side of the fiend sinful spirits, a few of the 10 fiends were dumbfounded. What a guy, he's still alive. Yaksha ghastly spirits was speechless. Wu Xing, Lu Tan, and the others had grim expressions as they exchanged glances. To be fair, they still felt a little guilty when they saw someone who was supposed to be dead suddenly appear in front of them. However, on second thought, everyone thought about it again. Although they did not have any supreme sacred arts, neither did Sword Realm Su Zhu. Furthermore, they had 18 Supreme True Spirits on their side. Could it be that the 18 of them couldn't kill Su Zhu? Everyone, success or failure depends on this. Wu Xing saw that some of the 18 Supreme True Spirits already looked hesitant and were shocked by the scene just now. He hurriedly said, "We've already attacked him just now. Both sides have no way out. It's a life and death battle. If we let him recover, none of us can continue to stay in the fiend battlefield. Everyone, this is the last fight. If we retreat at this last moment and are scared away by an extremely weak person, we'll be the joke of the 3,000 worlds. One had to admit that Wu Xing's words were indeed very provocative. The supreme true spirits, who were originally a little shaken, also took a deep breath at this time, and their eyes became firm. Lu Tan shouted, waving his arms and shouting. The 18 supreme true spirits also let out a cry at the same time, took out their respective divine weapons and secret techniques, and charged towards Su Zimo, who was in the center of the battlefield. On the other side, chess deity Junyu, Lin Xuanzhen, Long Li, and Mu Lian were also ready to attack. Among the four of them, Junyu, Lin Xuanzhen, and Long Li could at least block 3 supreme true spirits, and Mu Lian still had a supreme sacred art that she had not used. If the 4 of them went forward, they could at least help Su Zimo block 5 or 6 supreme true spirits. However, before the 4 of them could make a move, Su Zimo's counterattack had already erupted. It was so fierce, so tragic, and so violent. Boom! A loud sound suddenly came from Su Zimo's body. Then, 2 more heads and 4 arms suddenly grew out of his body. 3 heads and 6 arms. This supreme sacred art was not rare in the 3,000 worlds. Among the 18 supreme true spirits present, some had also successfully cultivated it. 3 heads and 6 arms, I know it too. Lu Tan shouted and also released the 3 heads and 6 arms state. Just as the 18 supreme true spirits were about to attack, another head grew out of Su Zimo's 3 heads. After the 6 arms, 2 more arms grew out. 4 heads and 8 arms, earth-shattering. Su Zimo's 4 hands held the Tai Horsetail Whisk, the Qingping Sword, the Phoenix Feather Fan, and the 3 treasures Jade Rui Scepter respectively. The other 4 hands were either closed together to form sword fingers, condensing sacred arts, or using bare hands. At this moment, Su Zimo's aura reached its peak. The figure spread out 4 heads and 8 arms like an ancient fiend celestial, standing indomitable and looking down on the world. His eyes were like lightning as he looked around arrogantly. At this moment, many people even had an illusion that the one being besieged was not Su Zhu of the Sword Realm, but the 18 supreme true spirits. Inside and outside Sky Tribute Square, everyone in the 3,000 worlds and 10,000 races stared at this scene with their eyes wide open. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Many kings in the Sky Tribute Square were shocked. Their hair stood on end, and their scalps were numb. End of chapter. Chapter 2878. As one's cultivation level increased, some divine powers would be abandoned, but some would be kept. For example, movement techniques and assistive divine abilities and secret arts could play different roles in different realms. For example, the 3 heads 6 arms technique would still be able to unleash great power even if one reached the Grotto Heaven realm or the Emperor realm. Among the kings present, there were some who knew the 3 heads 6 arms technique. However, they had never seen the 4 heads 8 arms technique in their hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation. There were no records of it in the ancient books. 4 heads 8 arms technique. Although it's just an extra head and 2 extra arms, the transformation is too great. I'm afraid it's already at the level of a supreme divine power. Immortal Slaying Sword, Divine Elephant Tooth, Vermilion Bird Heavenly Fire, 6 Paths of Reincarnation, Limitless Yin and Yang. Including the 4 heads 8 arms technique, it means that Sword World Su Zhu has already comprehended the 6 Paths Supreme Divine Powers. It's too scary. The 6 Paths Supreme Divine Powers can cleanse his body and bloodline. It's enough to let him shed his mortal body and be reborn. He can even stand shoulder to shoulder with the Protoss and dragons. He's only at the Kongming stage. His potential is really. The kings of the Sorcerer World, Sky Eye World, Stone World, and many other worlds all had ugly expressions. If they had seen the birth of such a monstrous genius in the Sword Realm, they would have only felt a little jealous. But now, that jealousy had turned into deep fear and worry. In the depths of their hearts, There was even a trace of fear that they didn't want to admit. At the Kongming stage, he had comprehended the 6 paths supreme divine powers, including the 6 paths of reincarnation and the 4 heads 8 arms technique. If he was allowed to continue growing, it would be unimaginable. Throughout history, there had never been such a monster who could cultivate to such a level. Therefore, no one could predict his future. No one dared to imagine. They had to kill him. The same thought flashed through the minds of the Cold-Eye Monarch and the others. Even if it meant breaking the tacit understanding and balance between the worlds, they had to kill this kid in advance at all costs. This wasn't just to avenge the supreme true spirits of their worlds, but also to get rid of a huge threat for their worlds. However, they still needed to wait for an opportunity. This was the Sky Reverence world. There was no chance for them to make a move. In the demonic battlefield, Su Zimo released his 4 heads and 8 arms, and 4 pairs of eyes shone with divine light. Facing the 18 supreme true spirits, he was fearless and suddenly opened his mouth. Suddenly, a deafening roar burst out from the depths of Su Zimo's throat. It was earth-shattering, and everything fell silent. Secret Dragon Roar Technique. Furthermore, it was the Dragon Roar secret technique that had been transformed from the Azure Dragon's Roar and other sound domain secret techniques. This dragon roar was even mixed with the sound of rolling thunder. It was heavy, dignified, and unstoppable. Dragons were at the forefront of all races, and they had an innate bloodline suppression over most other races. The dragon's roar would instill fear in the hearts of many living beings. But now, Su Zimo's dragon roar mystic technique had erupted, causing all the living beings around the demonic battlefield to fall silent. Even Long Li, who was far away, shuddered when he felt the dragon roar secret technique. Even she could not withstand it. The surrounding 18 supreme true spirits paused one after another under the impact of the dragon roar mystic technique, and their attacks came to a halt. After the dragon roar mystic technique, Su Zimo wielded the Qingping sword and slashed. Swoosh! Countless green sword shadows burst forth and descended from the sky. The void in the center of the battlefield seemed to have suffered a huge impact. It suddenly distorted and collapsed, revealing a huge pit. A powerful suction force was emitted from the deep pit, wanting to devour the 17 supreme true spirits in the surroundings. The deep pit was filled with an aura of death, like a gigantic tomb. Countless green sword shadows intertwined and descended into the gigantic tomb, severing all life and sealing off all escape routes. Sword burial. After 1,000 years, the sword burial technique had become even more terrifying. Not only was there the killing intent of sword Dao, there was also the death intent of heaven burial. The two of them fused together almost perfectly to form this sword Dao technique. A supreme true spirit was pierced by many green sword shadows. In the blink of an eye, his body was riddled with holes and his blood flowed out. That person's eyes were widened as he waved his hands, trying to struggle and escape. However, he could not resist the intent of sword burial and was dragged into the tomb, losing his life. Chapter 2879. More than 10 supreme true spirits wanted to break free from the gigantic tomb but realized that they could not do anything about it. Not only was their sharp sword chi blocking everyone's path of retreat, there was also a death aura that sealed everyone's life force. Some of the supreme true spirits wanted to summon their heaven bestowment badges but realized that they could not even activate their badges when they were trapped in the tomb. The Zenith Luo Sword Sutra and Heaven Burial Sutra were both forbidden secret manuals. Every single secret skill that was comprehended from them was incomparably terrifying when released. But now, the dermic formulation that was born from the fusion of the two forbidden secret manuals was even more unimaginable. A single sword strike was enough to bury 17 supreme true spirits. Under normal circumstances, given the capabilities of the 17 supreme true spirits, they might not have struggled as such. However, they were shocked by the Dragon Roar secret skill in the 4-headed and 8-armed state and lost the initiative, injured one after another. While they were distracted, the sword burial dermic formulation had already descended. At that moment, it was even more difficult for everyone to break free. Of course. After all, Among the 17 supreme true spirits, some of them had powerful trump cards and released many secret skills and innate divine powers. 3 figures crawled out of the tomb with sword wounds all over their bodies. They were wretched and their faces were filled with fear. 2 of them were Wu Xing, who instigated the supreme true spirits to attack Su Zimo initially. The other was Lu Tan of the Golden Crow world. There was also one from the Tomb Realm. The supreme true spirit of the Tomb Realm sacrificed the battle corpse that he had painstakingly refined for countless years to survive by chance. The battle corpses refined by cultivators of the Tomb Realm were akin to their weapons. The battle corpse that was buried in the tomb earlier on had already been refined by the supreme true spirit to the peak of the true self realm and was comparable to a grade 9 pure yang spirit treasure. Even so, the battle corpse could not withstand the might of sword burial. On the contrary, the battle corpse seemed to have transcended after falling into the tomb. It no longer struggled or resisted and merely laid there obediently. Helpless, the supreme true spirit channeled a secret skill and detonated the battle corpse. He made use of the immense power generated by the explosion of the battle corpse to break free from the tomb and escape. Apart from the 3 of them, the remaining 14 supreme true spirits were all buried in this huge tomb, their bodies and Tao vanishing. Do you think you can escape? Su Zimo sneered as he casually tossed the Tri-Jade scepter into the air. Just as the true spirit of the Tomb Realm crawled out of the tomb, a beam of green light descended from the sky and smashed into the top of his head. Bang! This time, it directly smashed a large hole in his head. The Tomb Realm true spirit's eyes were glazed over. His body swayed slightly before he fell straight down from the sky, dead. Without his battle corpse, this true spirit of the Tomb Realm was no different from an ordinary true spirit expert in terms of battle prowess. The Tri-Gem Rui scepter was extremely tough. It did not lose out even after taking a 9 tribulation pure yang numinous treasure head-on. Just one strike was enough to kill him. From beginning to end, Su Zimo did not even look at this person. His attention was still on Wu Xing and Lu Tan, who had escaped. Wu Xing had just escaped from the tomb with the help of the wizard tribe's curse. He touched the token of heaven at his waist and prepared to leave the demonic battlefield. However, right then, thousands of silver threads tore through the air and coiled around him. Under the restraint of the Tai horsetail whisk, Wu Xing could not move at all. As for the 4-headed and 8-armed Su Zimo, he had already closed in. Wu Xing was scared out of his wits as he looked at Su Zimo, who was filled with killing intent. However, at that critical moment, he still made the fastest reaction and channeled his essence spirit with all his might, wanting to release an essence spirit secret skill. However, right then, he suddenly felt a wave of weakness coming from his essence spirit. He could not even conjure his essence spirit secret skill. How could this be? Wu Xing was alarmed. The next moment he felt a sharp pain on his body. A few silver threads on the Tai horsetail whisk tore through his clothes and landed on his skin. Instantly, green smoke billowed from his skin, as though half of it was corroded. His bloodline was deteriorating rapidly. Ah! Wu Xing shrieked and roared, "Why used poison?" Indeed, he looked like he had been poisoned. However, in reality, there was no poison on Su Zimo's Tai horsetail whisk. However, before he released the Tai horsetail whisk, he stained a few silver threads with the water of the Hell's Spring of Death. Back then, there was still a little of the Hell's Spring of Death that Wu Dao's true body gave him after washing away the 2 curses. Since the Hell's Spring of Death could wash away the power of curses, there might be some changes if it was released on the witch race. That was merely a flash of inspiration for him. To think that the damage caused by the Hell's Spring of Death to the witch race was far beyond his imagination. That bit of Hell's Spring of Death was almost enough to cripple the supreme true spirit. At that moment, the battle was not over and there were still strong enemies around. Without thinking too much, Su Zimo pointed his Qingping sword and slashed forward. Exclamation point! A sword beam descended from the skies and entered Wu Xing's body. The next moment, Wu Xing's body split into 2 and fell from midair. His essence spirit was destroyed and he was dead. Another supreme true spirit was slain. On the other side, Lu Tan's blood qi surged and his body burned with golden flames. Turning into a streak of golden light, he had already fled far away from the battlefield. He had only managed to escape from the gigantic tomb after releasing multiple divine powers and secret skills consecutively and his innate divine powers and bloodline phenomenon. His bloodline phenomenon had been torn apart by the cyan sword shadows and buried by the grave. After escaping from the tomb, Lu Tan did not summon his heaven token right away. That was because he knew that he had not left the battlefield and Su Zhu of the Sword World could charge over at any moment. There was no chance for him to summon his heaven token. The only way he could summon his heaven token and escape was to distance himself from the terrifying four-headed, eight-armed existence by escaping from the battlefield. Thankfully, apart from the incomparably strong Essence Sunfire, the three-legged Golden Crow race was at the forefront of all living beings in terms of speed. In terms of movement techniques, there were not many beings that could surpass the three-legged Golden Crows. Only the golden-winged Great Rock race could firmly suppress them. After escaping from the battlefield, Lu Tan's face was pale and he turned back with lingering fear. At that moment, the four-headed, eight-armed Su Zhu had just killed Wu Xing and was far away from him. She could not catch up to him in time. Lu Tan gulped and heaved a sigh of relief. He gestured provocatively at Su Zimo as he took off his heaven token and prepared to leave. At this moment, he suddenly saw Su Zhu pointing at him from afar. A doubt arose in Lu Tan's heart. Suddenly, a huge shadow shrouded over. Right in front of everyone, a white tiger saint beast with a murderous aura appeared from the west of Lu Tan. It opened its bloody mouth and devoured Lu Tan. Lu Tan's life was severed and the white tiger left with his corpse. At this point of the battle, all 18 supreme true spirits were dead without a single survivor. Chapter 2880. Countless gravel of various sizes floated in the celestial tribute realm. A speck of dust was hidden among the gravel. If one spiritual sense seeped in, they would find that it was a spatial node with a completely different world inside. This was the secret realm of the celestial tribute realm. The cultivators and living beings of the celestial tribute realm, including the core rulers, all lived here and watched over every corner of the realm. There's quite a commotion over at the Fiend battlefield. A voice suddenly sounded from a giant palace floating in the air in the celestial tribute realm, but no one was in sight. I saw it. A monster has appeared in Sword World. It's rare to see someone who has comprehended the 6 supreme techniques. Another voice rang out in the empty palace. It's not just the supreme abilities of the 6 paths of reincarnation. The technique that this kid released just now contains the profundities of 2 forbidden secret scriptures. One of them is the Daluo sword scripture, and the other is the heaven-burying scripture. A third voice sounded. After the heaven-burying scripture was mentioned, the palace suddenly quieted down and became somewhat oppressive. After a long while, a sigh came from the palace. He's back. Could the destruction of the Hadal Sind grounds be his doing? I don't think so. I've seen it once. It's more like the power of the Lord of Hell. The Lord of Hell? How is that possible? Wasn't he suppressed by Avicii long ago? I'm not sure. This Su Zhu of Sword World knows the heaven-burying scripture. Is he his successor? Probably not. If he's the one he chose, why would he be exposed so easily? His peace shouldn't be in Sword World, but the celestial realm. Even if this kid isn't his successor, he's still received his legacy. There's still some connection. Should we kill him? A true spirit is like an ant to us. He's no threat at all. Why should we care? This Su Zhu went on a killing spree in the Fiend battlefield and offended many realms. There are many who want to kill him. Let's leave him to them. We just need to add fuel to the fire. That's right. Let this Su Zhu fend for himself. It'll be a warning to Sword World so that they won't repeat the same mistakes. Those old geezers of Sword World should understand. We don't need to care about a true spirit. Our attention should still be on the celestial realm. On Sky Tribute Square. From time to time, gasps and exclamations could be heard from the crowd. Su Zhu of the Sword Realm had killed Xia Yin of the Heavenly Eye race, Sherpa of the Stone race, Protoss Ming Hui of the Divine race, and severely injured Shuewen of the Blood Vine race. Despite being surrounded by 18 supreme true spirits, she was still able to unleash such a terrifying counterattack. Including Wu Xing and Lu Tan, 18 supreme true spirits were completely annihilated. This kid is too strong. I wonder how he cultivated his primordial spirit. It's actually so condensed, releasing so many supreme divine abilities and still having energy left. Invincible, the #1 true spirit in history. Most of the realms were only there to watch the show and did not take sides. Seeing this result, it was natural for them to exclaim in surprise. However, the Sorcerer World, Golden Crow World, Heavenly Vision World, and other world kings who had just lost their supreme true spirits all had ugly expressions on their faces. They gritted their teeth in hatred. Hearing the discussions around them and seeing the people from the Sword World shouting, the Cold Eye Monarch, Wu Shuiwang, and the others were even more furious, unable to contain themselves. "Don't be so smug, Lu Yun," Wu Shuiwang gritted his teeth and was about to say something. Off to the side, the Turtle Dragon King suddenly spoke up. "Who was the one who said that if your Wu Xing died inside, you wouldn't complain, resent, or blame others?" Wu Shuiwang's face was ashen, and he wanted to slap himself. The Hornless Dragon King sneered. "Wu Shuiwang, if I were you, I'd shut up right now and stop embarrassing myself." Wu Shuiwang felt his chest tighten when he heard this, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Immortal King Yulan suddenly smiled brightly. Speaking of which, Wu Xing, Lu Tan, and the others had no grudge with Su Zhu, so they wouldn't have suffered such a calamity. It's only because young friend Xia Yin took Su Zhu's token of bestowment before he died that Wu Xing, Lu Tan, and the others became greedy and ended up like this. The Cold Eye Monarch didn't feel anything when he heard this. However, when Immortal King Yulan finished her second sentence, he suddenly realized that many kings were looking at him. Even Wu Shuiwang, and the others were looking at him with a hint of resentment. The Cold Eye Monarch came back to his senses and immediately became anxious. He asked loudly, "Hun, what do you mean?" Wu Xing, Lu Tan, and the others died in Su Zhu's hands. "Do you want to blame this debt of blood on the Heavenly Eye Clan?" Immortal King Yulan smiled and shook her head. "Cold Eye Monarch, I didn't say that. Wu Xing, Lu Tan, and the others were indeed killed by Su Zhu, but they deserved it. After all, they were the ones who kicked Su Zhu when she was down first. It's mainly because of Xia Yin. Indeed, if Xia Yin didn't do this, Su Zhu would have left the demon battlefield directly, and Divine Sun Minghui, Sherpa, and Wu Xing wouldn't have died. Xia Yin is too deceitful. Yeah, he couldn't escape death, and he even dragged a large group of true spirits down with him. How despicable!" The Cold Eye Monarch listened to the discussions around him, and his head buzzed. His eyes were bloodshot. The Heavenly Eye Clan members were also dumbfounded. They hadn't completely recovered from the grief of Xia Yin's death, and suddenly, they realized that their vision had darkened. A huge black pot had fallen from the sky. Under the repeated blows, the Cold Eye Monarch could no longer control his emotions. He pointed at the giant screen not far away and said hatefully, "So what if he has 4 heads and 8 arms? He has released so many supreme divine powers. With so many trump cards, how much battle power does he have left? As long as any supreme true spirit dares to stand out, it's enough to kill him. In fact, if the supreme true spirits in the demon battlefield wanted to stand out and attack Su Zimo, they would have done so long ago." Now, the remaining supreme true spirits were almost all in a spectating state. Of course, there were too many supreme true spirits watching, and there were definitely some who were ready to make a move. The 2 supreme true spirits from the Kuan and Peng realms were eager to try. The top 10 supreme true spirits on the Battle Merit Jade Tablet were either dead or injured. The 2 of them were the strongest among the remaining supreme true spirits. However, just as the 2 of them stood out, and before they could rush toward the black-haired, green-robed figure, that person suddenly turned around and glanced at them indifferently. In this person's eyes, his left eye was as black as ink, and his right eye was as white as jade. In the north dark abyss of the Kuan realm, the 9th prince of the Peng realm saw this pair of eyes, and the fear in the depths of their hearts once again evoked. They couldn't help but recall the scene of Xia Yin's tragic death, and they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. The two supreme true spirits had just taken half a step forward when they were scared back by Su Zimo's gaze. End of chapter. It was as if Su Zimo already knew that the void yaksha would come. End of chapter. Chapter 2882. The cicada senses autumn before the wind blows. Before the yaksha ghostly spirit attacked, Su Zimo sensed waves of hostility and killing intent from the fiend's sinful spirit. He had long sensed it. The yaksha ghostly spirit discovered that when Sword World Su Zhu turned around and looked at him calmly, she conjured a complicated hand seal. To be precise, Su Zhu's expression was not only calm, but also carried an unusual sense of sacredness. The next moment, an incomparably terrifying divine power burst forth from that dermic art. It was not inferior to his space-time shackles. In that confined space, gigantic Buddhas suddenly appeared. They were either standing or sitting with lowered brows and eyes. Their dharma appearances were solemn and lotus platforms floated beneath them. Vast and solemn Sanskrit chanted from the gigantic Buddhas. Like a huge bell, it reverberated through the world and lingered endlessly. As the Sanskrit chants reverberated, lotus flowers began to fall from the sky. Even the ground began to surge with golden lotus flowers. Flowers rained from the sky and golden lotus flowers surged from the ground. In that space-time, the profoundness of Buddhism had reached its peak. As the Buddhist light spread, all evil beings had nowhere to hide. The yaksha ghostly spirit was initially hidden in the void. However, it was forced to reveal itself under the shroud of the Buddhist light. That was not the end. Roar! Right after the Sanskrit chants, two deafening roars burst forth from the world. Divine dragons appeared one after another around the gigantic Buddhas and let out loud dragon roars. Above the golden lotus flowers that appeared on the ground, gigantic divine statues appeared one after another. They raised their trunks and roared into the sky. Dragon roars, elephant roars, and Sanskrit chants echoed and collided in that world. However, there was no conflict. Instead, they reached a perfect resonance. Surrounded by the gigantic Buddhas, divine dragons, and elephants, Su Zimo's body seemed to be plated with a layer of golden light that made him look even more sacred and inviolable. That scene was way too shocking. Many living beings both inside and outside the evil fiend battlefield were dumbfounded and shocked. This is the dragon elephant of the Buddhas? A king's voice was filled with doubt and shock as he asked in disbelief, "Aren't the Buddha's dragon elephants a supreme technique? How can it be so powerful?" Amitabha. Another senior monk who was proficient in Buddhism chanted the name of Buddha softly. He looked at the figure on the battlefield and was filled with emotions. He said in a deep voice, "If one can comprehend the Taoist techniques of Buddhas, dragons, and elephants to the extreme, they can indeed elevate this peerless technique to the level of a supreme technique. However, this is too difficult. Compared to other supreme divine abilities, the dragon elephant of various Buddhas was indeed more difficult to comprehend. Since ancient times, there were countless monks with outstanding talents in Buddhism, but very few of them were able to raise the level of the dragon elephant of all Buddhas to the level of supreme divine ability. This was because no matter how deep one's understanding of Buddhism was, if one did not understand the Tao of dragons and elephants, one would not be able to unleash the true power of this divine ability. The attainments of these eminent monks in the Dharma were profound, but it was difficult for them to come into contact with the core Dharma of the dragons and elephants. Dragon elephant of various Buddhas, this should be his seventh supreme divine ability, a Kongming realm cultivator with 7 supreme divine abilities. This is truly unimaginable. To think that he still has a trump card and can release supreme divine abilities at this point in the battle. Unlike the deafening commotion earlier on, the discussions in Heaven Tribute Square gradually died down when they saw this. It was as though all the kings present were shrouded under an invisible pressure. The stronger the Tao fruit, the stronger the grotto heaven formed. There was no need to elaborate on how strong a Tao fruit that fused 7 supreme divine abilities would be. What sort of grotto heaven would be formed once such a Tao fruit was shattered? Nobody dared to imagine it. On the battlefield, Although the space-time seal of the Yaksha was strong, it could not defend against the impact of the dragon elephant of various Buddhas. Right in front of countless gazes, the space-time seal shattered instantly and the Buddhas, divine dragons and elephants broke free from their shackles. Buddha palms slapped down, divine dragons coiled around and divine elephants trampled. One of the 10 great evil demons, the Void Yaksha, was instantly smashed into smithereens by the dragon elephant of various Buddhas. At the sight of this, everyone knew that Wu Shui Wang's accusation of Sword World Su Zhu was self-evident. There was no need for Sword World to defend themselves anymore. This was because Sword World Su Zhu had killed a Void Yaksha in front of everyone. That was the most convincing evidence. Only 9 of the 10 great evil demons were left. This battle was not over yet. At the moment of the Void Yaksha's death, another supreme divine ability descended. Myriad manifestations of nature. The person who attacked was another of the 10 great evil demons, Blood Eye, as the beings of the 3,000 upper worlds called him. Blood Eye's eyes were bloodshot and he was filled with evil chi. Staring at Su Zimo in the distance, he attacked brazenly. He refused to believe that Sword World Su Zhu could defend against his supreme divine ability. This myriad manifestations of nature did not focus on killing. Instead, it pushed the Tao of illusions to the extreme, causing cultivators to lose themselves and create countless illusions. This Sword World Su Zhu had been fighting for a long time and had consumed a lot of her energy. When she was exhausted, she definitely wouldn't be able to resist an illusion that targeted one's Tao heart and Yuan spirit. Su Zimo stood in the air. Indeed, he did not have any supreme divine abilities that could defend against the descent of the myriad manifestations of nature. However, this supreme divine ability targeted the Tao heart and essence spirit. His Tao heart was indestructible and he had once condensed the 10th step of the Tao heart ladder. Even the impact of the 9th step of the Tao heart ladder was far stronger than this myriad manifestations of nature, let alone the 10th step. His Tao heart was unaffected by the descent of the myriad manifestations of nature. In his consciousness, there was indeed a surge of supreme divine ability power that wanted to confuse his essence spirit and make him fall into an illusion. Although Su Zimo did not possess the mask of Mara like Wu Dao's true body, his essence spirit was protected by the grade 12 creation lotus platform as well. The moment the divine ability of the myriad manifestations of nature surged into his consciousness, the grade 12 creation lotus platform sensed danger and spewed out beams of green light that surrounded Qinglian's essence spirit and protected her. At the same time, Qinglian's essence spirit chanted the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra and the Sanskrit reverberated in her consciousness. A Buddhist light shone and repelled all external forces. The Wisdom Nirvana Sutra was not only a taboo secret manual, it was also the #1 secret manual of spirit refinement. With the protection of the grade 12 creation Qinglian and the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra, the power of the myriad manifestations of nature could not affect Qinglian's essence spirit at all. Therefore, there was no myriad manifestations of nature before Su Zimo's eyes. There was only a single person in his clear gaze, Blood Eye of the 10 evil fiends. Traversing through countless spaces and countless figures, Su Zimo's gaze and aura locked onto Blood Eye. Pissed. He was not affected at all. Blood Eye's pupils constricted violently. Before he could advance, he discovered that he was already targeted by Su Zimo. Instantly, he gasped and his hair stood on end. At that moment, he finally experienced the suffocating pressure that Wu Xing, Xia Yin and the others felt when they faced Su Zimo previously. It was as though a calamity was about to befall him the next moment. Chapter 2883. Indeed, Su Zimo felt some sympathy towards the fates of those evil fiends and sinful spirits. He could vaguely guess that there might be more to what happened back then. That was the reason why he was unwilling to take the initiative to attack the evil fiends and sinful spirits here. However, that did not mean that he would be merciful and let the evil fiends and sinful spirits off just because they wanted to take advantage of the situation and attack him. In a flash, Su Zimo charged towards the evil fiends and sinful spirits and charged towards Blood Eye. Seeing that even supreme divine powers were useless against Su Zimo, Blood Eye lost his courage and did not dare to take Su Zimo head-on. Su Zimo had already killed more than 20 supreme true spirits and was stained with blood. In his four-headed and eight-armed state, his aura was torrential and his killing intent was surging. Anyone who bumped into him would feel fear. Fiend Celestial, save me. Blood Eye looked at a figure that resembled a mountain beside him and shouted for help. The figure's face looked similar to a human. However, there was a pair of horns on his head that were slightly curved and sharp. The horns were engraved with complicated patterns that seemed to contain some sort of mysterious power. Rumble. Boom. The figure known as the Fiend Celestial suddenly stood up and shook off countless dust from his body. Earlier on, he was merely squatting on the ground. Now that he stood up, he revealed a massive and muscular body that was dozens of feet tall. He stood tall and was shrouded in black chi. He was indeed like a Fiend Celestial that was unparalleled in the world. Roar! The Fiend Celestial glared at Su Zimo, who was approaching from afar with his bell-like eyes, and let out a deafening roar. When the living being roared, green veins popped up all over his body like anacondas coiling around his body. It was extremely horrifying. Compared to him, Su Zimo's figure was as insignificant as a speck of dust. Su Zimo paused when he was struck by the roar and focused his gaze. When he took a closer look, he discovered that there was a second head behind the head of this creature, and 4 arms on its body. Ashura race. A thought flashed across Su Zimo's mind. Back then, when Wu Dao's original body went to Avicii Hell, he had met Ashura in the Shura Temple on the Grand Tai Wei Mountain. Ashura could grow an additional head and 2 arms after entering the realm of True Self. At the Grotto Heaven realm, one would have 3 heads and 6 arms. Legend has it that the Emperor realm Ashura was 1,000 zhang tall. Although he no longer had more heads and only had 3, he had 8 arms. He was also known as the 8-armed Ashura. The 3 heads 6 arms ability was passed down from the Shura tribe. Shura, on the other hand, only had 3 heads and 8 arms. Therefore, when the king-level experts saw the 4-headed, 8-armed Su Zimo emerge, they were all greatly shaken and could hardly believe their eyes. Puny human, scram! The Fiend Celestial roared at Su Zimo, who was not far away, his eyes filled with killing intent and hostility. Even the Emperor realm experts of his race only had 3 heads and 8 arms. The fact that the human before him had 4 heads and 8 arms made him extremely displeased. Su Zimo sneered and charged forward once more. Kill! The Fiend Celestial roared, and the 2 horns on his head shone with a dim light, as though endless power was injected into his body. The blood chi in the Fiend Celestial's body surged like a tsunami. The next moment, a figure that was 1,000 zhang tall appeared behind the Fiend Celestial. It was a 3-headed, 8-armed Ashura. The Fiend Celestial's bloodline phenomenon, the 8-armed Ashura. The Fiend Celestial had yet to comprehend a supreme divine power, but with this bloodline phenomenon, he could fight against any other evil demon. When the 3-headed, 8-armed Ashura appeared, he was similarly stunned and confused when he saw the 4-headed, 8-armed Su Zimo. But soon, only killing intent was left in his eyes. The 8-armed Ashura wielded 8 weapons, including sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, tridents, and other weapons. He waved his 8 arms and clashed with Su Zimo. It was as if a speck of dust had collided with an ancient star. Boom! The 2 collided with a loud bang. In his 4-headed, 8-armed state, Su Zimo wielded the Sanyu Rui Scepter, Tai Horsetail Whisk, 9-tailed Phoenix Feather Fan, and the peerlessly sharp Qingping Sword. His might was unparalleled and unparalleled. Although the 8-armed Ashura wielded many weapons, they could not cause much damage to Su Zimo's body. A layer of yellow sand surrounded Su Zimo's body the entire time. 9 heavens living soil. This was a defensive utmost treasure derived from the creation Qinglian and was extremely useful at this moment. With the 9 heavens living soil blocking most of the damage, the remaining power was used on Qinglian's true body. Although it would leave some injuries, it did not affect Su Zimo much. Relying on the powerful self-healing ability of the grade 12 Green Lotus of Creation body, these minor injuries could be healed quickly in the course of a battle and be as good as new. On the contrary, be it the Sanyu Rui scepter or the Tai horsetail whisk, they would deal a huge blow to the 8-armed Ashura's body. However, the Qingping sword dealt the greatest damage. In just a few breaths' time, 4 of the 8-armed Ashura's arms were severed by Su Zimo, and the fiend Qi shrouding his body dimmed significantly. The true body of the fiend celestial wanted to charge forward several times to attack together with the bloodline phenomenon of the 8-armed Ashura. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he waved the 9-tail phoenix feather fan. The phoenix feather fan had already evolved into the 9-tail phoenix feather fan during his heavenly tribulation, and its power had increased tremendously. Under Su Zimo's full might, the 9-tail phoenix feather fan was already burning, bursting with flames that burned fiercely. Within the flames, a living being with a terrifying aura was born. It had a dragon head and phoenix tail, resembling both a dragon and a phoenix with sharp claws and horns. Lifelike, it lunged towards the fiend celestial, the taboo dragon phoenix. Initially, the phoenix feather fan could only release a single phantom of a divine phoenix. However, Su Zimo's Qinglian essence spirit was fused with the dragon phoenix essence spirit. With his dragon phoenix aura, the taboo dragon phoenix was born from flames. Before the fiend celestial could touch Su Zimo, it was entangled by the taboo dragon phoenix and could not break free. On the other side, when Blood Eye caught sight of the fiend celestial fighting Su Zimo, he made up his mind and channeled his essence spirit wildly, releasing an essence spirit's secret skill. Sensing the fluctuation of spirit consciousness around him, Su Zimo did not look and quickly realized that someone had released an essence spirit's secret skill on him. As he fought against the 8-armed Ashura, he freed a hand and touched his glabella gently. Suddenly, a dragon scale flew out from his glabella, emitting a shuddering aura as it collided with the essence spirit's secret skill. Reverse scale. In Heaven Tribute Square, the hornless Dragon King's expression changed when he saw that. He recognized the origin of the essence spirit's secret skill instantly. The reverse scale was the core essence spirit's secret skill of dragons. To think that a human would possess that secret skill. Chapter 2884. Fiend Battlefield. The reverse scale appeared and collided against the essence spirit's secret skill released by Blood Eye. Blood Eye shuddered. Immediately after, his features contorted as though he was in immense pain and his face turned much paler. Anyone who touched the reverse scale of a dragon would definitely die. After releasing the 8 Fangs' divine power, Su Zimo's essence spirit realm had already surpassed the Paradise Void realm, and the might of the reverse scale secret skill was even more terrifying. However, Blood Eye was also one of the 10 great fiends. His essence spirit realm had also surpassed the Paradise Void realm. Furthermore, he had comprehended more than one essence spirit secret skill. After realizing the danger, he released 2 more essence spirit secret skills consecutively to defend against the damage of the reverse scale technique. Even so, his primordial spirit still suffered a huge impact and became extremely weak. Blood Eye was horrified and wanted to turn and flee. There was naturally no way Su Zimo would let him off so easily. However, there was still the dozens of feet tall fiend celestial blocking the way. If he wanted to kill Blood Eye, he would have to get past Shura. Su Zimo ignored the fiend celestial and charged towards Blood Eye in a flash. At the same time, he conjured hand seals and pointed at the fiend celestial's massive body, releasing another divine power. It was only a supreme divine power. However, after releasing that supreme divine power, the fiend celestial felt his heart skip a beat, as though a calamity was about to befall him the next moment. A long and drawn-out sound of a bell suddenly rang out from afar. Bang! Before the fiend celestial could react, an incomparably heavy drum sounded and stopped abruptly. His heart also stopped beating along with the drum. The fiend celestial could sense his lifespan depleting rapidly. Almost instantly, his lifespan of hundreds of thousands of years came to an end. The bell sounded and the drum ended. Morning bell and evening drum, instant youth. All these years, although Su Zimo had yet to completely fuse the morning bell and evening drum and instant youth and had yet to transform them to the level of a supreme divine power, the Tao of Time was still able to release extremely terrifying lethality. In fact, the Fian Celestial's bloodline phenomenon was enough to resist momentary youth. However, his bloodline phenomenon, the eight-armed Shura, had been heavily wounded by the four-headed, eight-armed Su Zimo and was on the verge of collapse. As for the demon god's true form, it didn't have the upper hand in its battle against the forbidden dragon Phoenix. It didn't have the time to defend against the momentary beauty. The Fiend Celestial had never expected that a peerless divine ability would be able to claim his life. Under the crowd's gaze, the previously scornful figure with a monstrous demonic aura suddenly turned gloomy and aged. The ferocious glint in his eyes was replaced by a dull yellow glow. Su Zimo brushed past him. The god fiend could only watch helplessly, unable to stop him. Rumble! The gigantic body, which was dozens of feet tall, fell powerlessly to the ground. A loud crash was heard and dust was kicked up. The demon god from Shura's sinful land, one of the 10 great demons, had reached the end of his lifespan and died. Blood Eye was scared out of his wits when he saw that. Initially, he thought that the Fiend Celestial would be able to hold off Su Zimo for a while longer. Who would have thought that the Fiend Celestial would die on the spot? In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already arrived before him. It was already too late for him to escape now. Blood Eye summoned his destiny-pure young numinous treasure hurriedly. It was a blood saber that was dripping with blood and filth. Focusing his gaze, he slashed towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo did not dodge or evade. And there were more than 20 ready-made Supreme True Spirit Tao fruits in front of them. In front of a huge temptation, there were ultimately people who could not hold back and took the risk. But they did not expect that Su Zimo had already turned around and charged back after rapidly killing the 3 great evil fiends. Boom! Su Zimo formed 2 Buddha seals with both hands and smashed them towards the few true spirit experts on the battlefield. Great Vajrawheel Seal. Great Meru Mountain Seal. In an instant, 2 incomparably majestic mountain peaks that towered into the clouds appeared in Su Zimo's hands, smashing down with an unstoppable aura. Bang! Some true spirits were smashed into pieces. Their essence spirits were lucky enough to escape and hurriedly took out the heaven worship token, leaving the evil fiend battlefield. Some were crushed by the great Meru Mountain and turned into a cloud of blood mist, dying on the spot. When the 2 Buddhist mountain peaks descended, the group of true spirit experts immediately scattered like birds and beasts, fleeing in all directions in a wretched state. Su Zimo in his 4-headed and 8-armed state rampaged through the battlefield, killing in all directions. Everywhere he passed, everyone retreated. No one dared to face him head-on. If you like Eternal Holy King, please add it to your collection. Eternal Holy King Fighting Bar updates the fastest. Could it be that he has other trump cards? What are these supreme true spirits afraid of? What a bunch of trash. The Cold Eye Monarch lost control of his emotions and began to speak without thinking. His words included many other realms in his scolding. The Divine Phoenix Monarch of the Wutong realm sneered and said, "Your Sky Eye Clan Xia-Yin is indeed not trash. It's just that there's something wrong with his head." If there's nothing wrong with his head, why would he provoke such a ruthless person? It's fine to provoke him. At most, he'll die. But he thinks he's smart and wants to kill a bunch of people before he dies. The Barbarian Realm Monarch nodded and said in a muffled voice, "If it wasn't for Xia-Yin, the others wouldn't have died in the demon battlefield." Again? The Cold Eye Monarch's face was red, and he was so angry that his whole body trembled. Hearing the discussions around them, the people of the Sword World felt a little complicated. For example, some true spirits looked at Su Zimo with excitement and joy. As for the 8 Peak Masters, they were more emotional. This was because they knew that Su Zimo, who had appeared in front of everyone and attracted countless exclamations, had yet to unleash his full strength. At the very least, he had never used the bloodline of the grade 12 Green Lotus of creation. But even so, with the support of 7 supreme abilities, Su Zimo was already invincible in the true self realm. If there were still any supreme true spirits who didn't know better and wanted to attack him, it was very likely that they would force out the even more terrifying Su Zimo. In reality, the 8 Peak Masters were worrying too much. After this battle, although there were still many supreme true spirits lingering around, no one dared to rashly step forward. Just now, more than 20 supreme true spirits had died tragically. Even with the heaven bestowment token, they couldn't escape and didn't even have the chance to self-destruct. Who would dare to act rashly? This kind of extreme killing had already formed a strong deterrent force in everyone's hearts. In everyone's eyes, Su Zimo was completely unfathomable. No one knew if they would attract an even more terrifying counterattack if they rashly stepped forward. Even if Su Zimo released his 8th supreme ability now, many supreme true spirits wouldn't be surprised. Chess Immortal Junyu, Lin Xuanzhen, Long Li, and Mulyen stood not far away and exchanged glances with strange expressions. Initially, they wanted to stand on Su Zimo's side and fight the other supreme true spirits to the death. However, they didn't expect that before the 4 of them could attack, Su Zimo would transform into his 4-headed and 8-armed form and kill in all directions. He killed until countless true spirits avoided him and no one dared to step forward. Many corpses were strewn all over the huge battlefield. There were even many corpses of supreme true spirits among them. Not to mention ordinary true spirit experts, just the bodies of more than 20 supreme true spirits were filled with treasures. The storage bags of these supreme true spirits, including the pure yang numinous treasures in their hands and the perfectly preserved Tao fruits that were almost flawless. With such rich treasures, who knew how many pairs of eyes were staring at them, but no one dared to step forward. At this time, Su Zimo had already dispersed his 4-headed and 8-armed state. The amplification brought about by the 8 Fangs' divine power had also gradually dissipated. Even so, the deterrent force emitted from his body still made people tremble in fear. Su Zimo cleaned up the battlefield by himself. The most important thing was to collect the Tao fruits of the supreme true spirits. These Tao fruits could help him increase his cultivation realm as quickly as possible. Eternal Holy King's Air-Free chapters will continue to be updated in the bar. There are no advertisements in the website. Please bookmark and recommend the bar. If you like Eternal Holy King, please bookmark. Eternal Holy King bar updates the fastest. Chapter 2886. On the Sky Tribute Square. The Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Puppet Monarch, and the other monarchs had ugly expressions. It was one thing for the supreme true spirits of their realms to die, but if word of this spread, it would be a blow to the reputation of their realms. As such, the 20 or so supreme true spirits became Sword World Su Zhu's unparalleled reputation. Of course, even if a supreme true spirit died, it wouldn't be a serious blow to the various realms, especially the super realms. However, the Cold Eye Monarch and the others still felt uneasy. They felt an enormous sense of threat and pressure from Su Zhu of Sword Realm. This young man, although he was only a Kongming stage true spirit, although they could casually crush him to death with a single finger. But if he was allowed to continue cultivating, no one knew how strong he would become. 7 supreme superpowers, Brother Cold Eye, Brother Brilliant Sun, Brother Stone Puppet, Brother Shueli, Brother Lu Wu, what are your plans for today's matter? While the Cold Eye Monarch and the others were silent, a voice suddenly sounded in their minds. It came from the Witch World's Blood King Wu. Among the supreme true spirits of the Sky Eye World, Light World, Stone World, Blood World, Golden Crow World, and Witch World, only Shuewen from the Blood World had survived. The other 5 had all died at the hands of Su Zimo. As for the Cold Eye Monarch and the other monarchs, they were the commanders of their respective realms. The Cold Eye Monarch, Brilliant Sun, Stone Puppet Monarch, and the others looked at each other. In fact, they all had the same idea, but no one said it out loud. Brother Blood King Wu, what do you think? Monarch Lu Wu asked. Blood King Wu chuckled and said, I think everyone has the same idea as me. We can't let this kid return to the Sword World alive. We have to eliminate him. The Cold Eye Monarch and the others didn't say anything. Blood King Wu continued, after this battle, Sword World Su Zhu can be said to be invincible in the demonic battlefield. No one will dare to provoke him. It's impossible for him to die in the demonic battlefield. Sunglory said with a frown, but even if he leaves the evil fiend battlefield and fights in accordance with the restrictions of the heaven realm, we still can't do anything to him. The celestial tribute world forbids fighting. Can't we just leave the celestial tribute world? Wu Shui Wang asked with a smile. Lord Bloodly narrowed his eyes slightly and said, Brother Wu Shui, do you mean that when we leave the celestial tribute field, the 6 kings of the super fields should join forces to kill this man? It's not just our 6 super interfaces. Blood Shaman King said, like the giant realm, poison realm, star realm, these higher realm true spirits just died in Su Zhu's hands. There are also some mid-realm kings, we can also unite them. No matter how strong the 8 peak masters of the sword world are, they won't be able to withstand the combined attacks of over 20 realm kings. The 8 of them won't be able to protect Su Zhu. Han Mu Monarch and Stone Cave Monarch nodded. The Cold Eye Monarch had long hated Su Zimo to the bone. If there was a chance to kill him, he would not let it go. As for the enmity between the Stone Realm and the Sword Realm, there was no need to worry. The Stone Cave Monarch was more than happy to join forces with the other 5 great realms to deal with someone from the Sword Realm. God King Rieo, Lord Bloodly, and King Luwu hesitated. For one, if they chose to attack Su Zhu, it would be breaking the unspoken rules between the realms. They would become enemies with the Sword Realm, and might even face its revenge. For another, it wasn't a very honorable thing to do. As Grotto Heaven Realm Kings, killing a true spirit was one thing. 6 great realms joining forces. If they added the Giant Realm, Poison Realm, and other higher realms and mid-realm kings, there would be over 200 of them. 200 kings against one true spirit wasn't honorable at all. It would damage their reputation. This matter. King Luwu mused. As soon as he opened his mouth, Blood Shaman King seemed to see through their misgivings. He smiled and said, Fellow Taoists, I can understand your concerns. However, we won't openly target Su Zhu once we're outside the celestial tribute field. We can use the excuse of avenging our race's geniuses to provoke a fight. When the time comes, we'll start a great battle between kings. How intense will that be? Su Zhu of the Sword Realm is just a true spirit. It's perfectly normal for her to die in a battle between kings. Sun Glory, King Xueli, and King Luwu's eyes lit up and they nodded. This was a good idea. This way, even if the Sword Realm guessed that they were doing this to kill Su Zhu, they wouldn't have any concrete evidence. As for Sword Realm's revenge, Blood Shaman King chuckled coldly. As long as our 6 great realms join forces, we don't mind starting a realm war if the Sword Realm dares to retaliate. That's right. King Shershua's eyes glinted fiercely. If our 6 great realms join forces, we can destroy the Sword Realm. The Cold Eye Monarch also said, According to what I know, the strongest monarchs in the Sword Realm are already old. Their vitality is declining, and their battle prowess is probably not at its peak. Godly King Rieo, King Xueli, and King Lu Wu nodded. In truth, the 3 of them also wanted to kill Su Zimo. Not only because the true spirits of their realms had been killed by Su Zimo, but more importantly, because of the fear in the depths of their hearts. Su Zimo made them feel a threat from the future. That being said, there's no time limit for staying in the Sky Tribute world after the restrictions are lifted, King Luwu said solemnly. As long as Su Zhu of the Sword Realm stays in the Sky Tribute world, we can't do anything to him. Don't worry. Blood Shaman King said confidently, the Sky Tribute world won't allow the beings of the 3,000 realms to stay here forever. As long as the Sky Tribute world is closed, it'll be our chance. At that moment, Godly King Rieo's gaze shifted as he frowned. He suddenly realized that Lu Yun of the Sword Realm had disappeared without him noticing. Sunglori's heart skipped a beat. Could something have happened? If the Sword Realm made preparations and summoned an emperor, that's impossible under normal circumstances. Blood Shaman King smiled. The battle in the fiendish battlefield is only a battle of true spirits after all. It won't alarm emperors. Moreover, our alliance this time was only a spur-of-the-moment idea. How would the Sword Realm know and make preparations in advance? Of course, even if they're prepared, it won't help. Oh! King Xueli, King Luwu, and King Luo heard the hidden meaning in Blood Shaman King's words and looked over. Blood Shaman King smiled and pretended to be mysterious. Don't worry, no emperors can receive the news from the Sky Tribute world. If you like Eternal Holy King, please add it to your collection. Eternal Holy King Fighting Bar updates the fastest. Chapter 2887. The Wu Blood King, the Cold Eye King, and the other kings from the great worlds had used their spiritual sense to communicate. In the chaotic Sky Tribute Square, it was hard to attract the attention of others. After the six finished their discussion, the Wu Blood King persuaded the other kings from the higher and middle realms to work with them. The true spirits of these realms had just died at the hands of Su Zimo. It wasn't difficult for the Wu Blood King to convince them. He just needed to stir up some hatred and dispel their worries about the Sword World. After a while, Lu Yun walked in. He returned to the Sword World and stood side by side with the other Peak Lords. His expression was calm and there was nothing wrong with him. Has the news spread out? Yulan asked through her spiritual sense. Lu Yun nodded slightly. After the battle in the Fiend battlefield just now, Lu Yun had already sensed the danger. There was no one in the Fiend battlefield that could threaten Su Zimo. The real danger came from outside the Fiend battlefield. Lu Yun didn't know what the Wu Blood King and the others were doing. But he was worried that Su Zimo's talent would cause the Cold Eye King and the others to break the balance and kill him. Even if there was a 1 in 1,000 chance, he didn't want to take the risk. Su Zimo was the future of the Sword World. He was extremely important and there couldn't be any mistakes. Furthermore, the Iron Crown Elder would be the first to receive the news if he crushed the message talisman. Even a Peak Emperor realm expert couldn't descend from the Sword World to the Sky Tribute world in an instant. Therefore, Lu Yun crushed the message talisman in advance to inform the Iron Crown Elder to come to the Sky Tribute world first and escort Su Zimo back to the Sword World. Seeing Lu Yun nod, Yulan and the other Peak Lords relaxed. Their tense nerves finally relaxed as they let out a sigh of relief. Just now, the Cold Eye King and the Stone Puppet King had some unusual spiritual sense fluctuations. I don't know what they're plotting. Yulan transmitted. Don't worry. Lu Yun smiled faintly and said, in the face of absolute power, all schemes are nothing. Who cares what they're plotting? Once the Iron Crown Sword Emperor arrives, I'll break it with a sword. The Peak Masters nodded. Some of the true immortals in the Sword World were still talking excitedly about the great battle in the Fiend battlefield. Lu Yun and the others were deep in thought. They were already prepared to deal with the possible dangers in the future. On the Sky Tribute Square, it seemed calm and tranquil, but in reality, there were undercurrents surging. Because of the rules of the Celestial Realm, the kings of the 3,000 realms gathered together. It seemed peaceful, but they just lacked an opportunity. Time trickled by. For the rest of the day, Su Zimo did not engage in a single battle in the Fiend battlefield. Wherever he went, regardless of whether it was the true spirits of the 3,000 worlds or the evil spirits, they would all disperse. No one dared to provoke him. Of course, during this day he did not spend his energy on other people. It seemed like he was casually walking around the battlefield, but most of the time he was conserving his energy and recovering his vitality. To him, the true danger did not lie in the evil demon battlefield. Under the guidance of the plain-clothed swordsman Luo Jun, he found a spatial crack in the demonic battlefield. Although he didn't have a heaven bestowment token, he could leave this spatial rift at any time. That battle had also consumed a lot of his energy. Fortunately, after Qinglian's true body transformed to the 12th stage, her true yuan recovery speed had increased again. In less than half a day, he had already recovered to his peak state. As for the battle between the true spirits of the 3,000 worlds and the evil spirits, he did not interfere. Although he sympathized with the plain-clothed swordsman Luo Jun, with his strength, there was not much he could do. However, before he left, Su Zimo sent a voice transmission to Luo Jun about the destruction of the 9 underworld's sinful grounds. Luo Jun and the evil spirits were imprisoned in the evil demon battlefield and did not know what was happening outside. Only when Su Zimo told him did Luo Jun know why the celestial realm was so angry. Telling Luo Jun this was just to give Luo Jun a chance to live. Since the 9 underworld's sin grounds was broken, perhaps one day, this evil demon battlefield would also be broken, and they would regain their freedom. Only a day had passed since the opening of the evil demon battlefield. A cold voice suddenly sounded in the celestial realm and the evil demon battlefield. The evil demon battlefield and the celestial realm are temporarily closed. After 2 hours, if there are any living beings of the 3,000 worlds in the celestial realm and the evil demon battlefield, they will be wiped out. A sudden warning from the celestial realm. When this voice rang out, it immediately caused a commotion in Sky Tribute Square. This kind of situation had never happened before. No one knew why the celestial realm was doing this. Lu Yun and the other peak masters looked at each other and frowned. This action seemed to be targeted at all the living beings of the 3,000 worlds, but if they left the celestial realm, the sword realm would be in danger. Moreover, it was too sudden. Lu Yun felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, he had crushed the message talisman in advance. Otherwise, it would be too late to inform the Iron Crown Elder. The Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Puppet Monarch, Brilliant Sun Monarch, and the other kings were shocked when they heard this news. Kings of the Giant Realm and Poison Realm were hesitant when they heard the Witch Blood King's instigation. However, this news was a heaven-sent opportunity for them. The celestial realms seemed to be helping them intentionally. When the true spirits of the 3,000 worlds in the evil demon battlefield heard this news, they didn't dare to stay and activated their celestial realm tokens. Under the envious gazes of countless evil spirits, they returned to the celestial realm. Su Zimo also arrived at the celestial realm through the spatial crack. The moment he appeared, there were many true spirit realm experts who had returned from the evil demon battlefield gathered around him. But when they saw him, their expressions changed and they retreated. Some even huddled together and stumbled. It was chaos. What are you panicking for? A king frowned and shouted angrily, "This is the celestial realm, not the evil demon battlefield. Killing is not allowed." Hearing this, all the true spirit-level experts reacted, their faces turning red. That battle had a huge impact on them. When they faced Su Zimo, they would subconsciously choose to retreat as if they were avoiding danger. It had become a subconscious action. The power of one battle was actually so great. When the kings saw this, they couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. After this battle, if the true spirit experts of the 3,000 worlds met Sword Realm Suzhou again in the future, their momentum would be weakened by 30%. Perhaps this battle alone was enough to establish the number one true spirit in the 3,000 worlds. The error-free chapters of Eternal Holy King will continue to be updated in the hand-fighting bar. There will be no advertisements. Please bookmark and recommend the hand-fighting bar. If you like Eternal Holy King, please bookmark. Eternal Holy King hand-fighting bar is the fastest to update. Chapter 2888. Let's go to the treasure pagoda first. Lu Yun looked at Su Zimo and nodded. Let's leave as soon as possible after exchanging for treasures. Although Su Zimo did not kill many evil fiends and sinful spirits in this trip to the evil fiend battlefield, he killed more than 20 supreme true spirits. The tokens of these supreme true spirits were all in his hands. The battle merits on them could be converted to his at any time. He had lost his token and hadn't carefully calculated how many battle merits he had accumulated. However, he estimated that it could reach tens of thousands. Most of the top 10 names on the battle merit Jade Steel had dimmed. The first row had been replaced by Suzhou. Most of the other realms had the same plan. They would leave immediately after heading to the treasure pagoda. After all, they only had 2 hours left. At this moment, the cold voice from the celestial world sounded again. The treasure pagoda is temporarily closed. Exchanging for treasures is prohibited. Everyone from the sword world frowned when they heard this. What's the meaning of this? Lu Yun was annoyed and couldn't help but grumble. He closed it just because he said so? That's too overbearing. There was something that Lu Yun didn't say out loud because he had some misgivings. He even suspected that the celestial world was deliberately targeting the sword world. Forget it. Yulan shook his head slightly. The celestial world has a transcendent status. They don't need to explain their actions to us. It's better not to complicate matters and have any conflicts with them. Although Lu Yun was indignant, he still took a deep breath and nodded. In fact, he knew that the celestial world's strength was unfathomable. Even a super major world like the Sword World couldn't compete with them. In this life, the Blood Ape world was originally a super major world. However, for some reason, the Blood Ape race had a conflict with the celestial world. The celestial world punished the Blood Ape race by killing more than 10 Blood Ape Imperial Lords and slaughtering countless Blood Apes. This battle was called the Blood Ape Calamity. In this battle, the number of Imperial Emperors of the Blood Ape clan was reduced to less than 10. With less than 10 Imperial Lords, the celestial world was no longer a super major world. It was said that this was only a small warning from the celestial world to the Blood Ape race. If the Blood Ape clan had not submitted in the end, the Blood Ape realm might have been completely destroyed. The Blood Ape race was originally extremely warlike. This race had once produced a great emperor who created the battle epic. However, in this life, ever since the calamity of the Blood Ape realm had never been able to rise up. Instead, it had become much more restrained. After that, the Blood Ape clan never came to the celestial tribute world again. This time, the restrictions of the celestial tribute realm were lifted. Many realms had gathered, but the Blood Apes still hadn't appeared. This was also the reason. Memories of the past flashed through his mind, causing him to sigh softly. Su Zimo frowned when he heard about the celestial tribute world. But soon he felt relieved. He laughed mockingly and didn't say anything. Whether the celestial tribute world was intentional or not, his harvest from this trip to the Fiend Devil battlefield was already plentiful enough. Even if he exchanged all of his battle merits for Supreme True Spirit Dao fruits, he would only be able to exchange for a few. However, after this battle, there were already more than 20 perfectly preserved Supreme True Spirit Dao fruits in his storage bag. Moreover, in his heart he didn't place much importance on the battle just now. More than 20 Dao fruits could only be considered a bonus. There was only one true goal in this trip to the celestial tribute world. Since they couldn't go to the treasure pavilion to exchange for treasures, those from the Sword World didn't linger in the celestial tribute world. They accompanied Lin Xuanzhen and returned the medallion to the celestial tribute pavilion. Then, they boarded the immortal boat and left Celestial Tribute Island, heading out of the celestial tribute world. Nian Qi had planned to follow Su Zimo and leave the world of light, but Su Zimo's gaze dissuaded him. Outside the celestial tribute world, he was very likely to face danger. If Nian Qi stayed by his side, he would definitely be dragged into the mess and his life would be in danger. At least he could stay alive if he followed the world of light. The Cold Eye King, Shaman Blood King, Stone Fiend King, and the other kings looked at each other and immediately followed with their cultivators. All 3,000 worlds had to evacuate from Celestial Tribute Island within 2 hours. Thousands of starships and boats turned into specks of light and streaked through the sky. The Cold Eye King, Shaman Blood King, and more than 20 other realms' boats didn't stand out among them. In the blink of an eye, those from the Sword World had left the Celestial Tribute World. Outside the Celestial Tribute World, Lu Yun and the others immediately patrolled the area, but didn't find the old man with the iron crown. What's going on? Yu Lan frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, Sword Emperor Iron Crown didn't come? A trace of unease rose in his heart. He'd torn apart the transmission talisman long ago. Logically speaking, the old man should have arrived at the Celestial Tribute World after receiving the news. Why hadn't he shown up? Maybe we didn't run into any danger, so the Sword Emperor didn't need to show up, Feng Su, head of Phantom Sword Peak, suggested. That's not right. Lu Yun frowned and shook his head. Even if Emperor Iron Crown didn't want to show up, he should have sent us a message with his consciousness and told us not to worry. The Peak Lords' hearts sank when they heard this. This was indeed strange. The starry sky around them was eerily dark and eerily quiet. There was no trace of the old man at all. The old man didn't receive the message? The same thought popped into the minds of the 8 Peak Lords at the same time. That was the only explanation for the scene before him. It's the Celestial Tribute World. Yulan's expression turned cold. The Celestial Tribute World cut off your transmission. They'd only suspected that the celestial tribute world's actions were targeted at Sword World. Now that something like this had happened, the Peak Lords immediately thought of the celestial tribute world. It's not the celestial tribute world. Lu Yun shook his head solemnly. I was worried about an accident, so I deliberately left the celestial tribute world some distance away before I sent the message. If it's not the celestial tribute world, who would have the means to cut off a message imprinted with an Emperor's Tao method? The Peak Masters were bewildered. Off to the side, Su Zimo didn't bat an eyelid as he listened to the Peak Lord's conversation. So it's finally here. He didn't explain anything to him, nor did he choose to send a message with his consciousness. At this moment, his every move might be under the surveillance of others. Anything out of the ordinary would arouse suspicion and caution. Many realms had already left the celestial tribute world on starships and teleported back to their own realms through spatial tunnels. Let's get out of here first. He didn't know what to do, so he made a prompt decision and tore through the void with his ship. Where do you think you're going, Lu Yun? At this moment, an icy cold voice sounded. The next moment, a huge force rushed out from the side and instantly pierced through the spatial tunnel. The Sword Realm's immortal boat was also forced back into the starry sky. It was the Stoneleaf King. Lu Yun and the others' hearts sank. End of chapter. Chapter 2889. The realm kings of the 3,000 realms had planned to leave this place on their immortal ships, but they all stopped when they saw this scene. Not far away, the 6 great realms led the way: Sky Vision, Radiance, Stone, Blood, Shaman, and Suncrow. There was also the Insect World, Giant World, Poison World, Star World, Lifeless World, Bone World, Tomb World, Mystical World, Frost World, and Big Dipper World. There were also the Ant Realm, Rat Realm, Sky Scorpion Realm, Black Crow Realm, Thousand Spider Realm, Dragon Crane Realm, Windjackal Realm, and Fire Realm. More than 200 kings of 24 realms surrounded Sword World's ship, sealing off all exits. Their expressions were hostile and murderous. Most of the supreme true spirits of these 24 realms had just died at the hands of Sword World's Su Zhu on the Fiend battlefield. Some of them were either vassals of the 6 great realms, or had clashed with Sword World's Su Zhu in the Fiend battlefield. The other realms perked up when they saw this. Damn it, Sword World's Su Zhu probably won't make it back alive. In the Fiend battlefield, it's all up to one's own ability to fight against a true spirit. These realms are too shameless. Heh, if I were a king of these realms, I wouldn't openly target Sword World Su Zhu. When a great battle breaks out between kings, Sword World Su Zhu is just a true spirit. It's only natural that she die in the chaos. This era is already chaotic to begin with. After today, the upper realms will likely be even more chaotic. For the other realms, this battle had nothing to do with them. They would only watch from the sidelines and not help either side. The Hui Dragon King from the Dragon Realm frowned and stopped in his tracks. Chi Dragon King, it's best that we stay out of this, another Dragon King said in a low voice. We only have 3 kings on this trip. Even if we help Lu Yun, we won't be able to fend off more than 200 kings. Whether it's the Frost Eye King, the Shaman Blood King, or the Stone Elemental King, none of them are easy to deal with. Although the dragons were a great realm, they were few in number. Including Chi Dragon King, there were only 3 Dragon Kings on this trip. Sword World Su Zhu safely are in the Fiend battlefield. The Horned Dragon King said with a frown. Even so, we don't need to risk our lives to get involved in such a battle between kings. The Dragon King continued to persuade, if we get involved in the battle, who will protect Li? The Hornless Dragon King was expressionless. After a short while, she said slowly, if a great battle breaks out in a while, the 2 of you protect Li and leave this place. Don't worry about me. Hui Dragon King, you. The Dragon King tried to persuade him again. The Hornless Dragon King waved his hand and interrupted, if I see that the situation is not right, I will naturally leave. On the other side, Yulan Immortal King of the Flower Realm also stopped her immortal boat and looked over. Stone Skeleton King, what are you doing? Lu Yun asked with a grave expression on his face. Nothing. The Stone Demon King casually waved his hand and took out a huge stone axe from his storage bag. He slowly said, "There are too many grudges between our two domains. It's rare for us to run into each other, so let's have a good battle." Lu Yun nodded and looked at Wu Shui, Han Mu, Sunglory, Lu Wu, Bloodli, and the others. He asked in a low voice, "What are you all doing here?" "I've heard that Brother Lu's sword Tao of Slaughter is the pinnacle of slaughter. I'd like to experience it for myself today," Sunglory declared loudly. Lu Wu responded faintly, "My clan's genius died at the hands of Sword World Suju. I won't hurt him, I just want to fight you." Han Mu grinned, the bloody scar between his brows seeming to open, exuding a cold and terrifying presence. He said darkly, "You didn't expect this, did you, Lu Yun?" "Ha!" Lu Yun laughed as well. His heart was burning with anger as he shouted, "You bunch of shameless people. You just want to kill the peak master of the 9th sword peak of the sword world, but you don't dare to admit it. Instead, you come up with some high-sounding reasons. If you want to fight, let's fight. Why hide?" Yu Lan also unsheathed her long sword and entered a desperate situation, brimming with killing intent. Given the current situation, the people of Sword World had no other choice. Whether they showed weakness or begged for mercy, the 200 kings of the 6 superworlds wouldn't give them any chance. Lu Yun's gaze fell on the kings of the higher and middle realms. He slowly said, "You're all quite bold. As a Grotto Heaven Realm king, you want to kill the true spirit of Sword World? Just wait for the revenge of the Sword World's sovereign lord." Hearing this, the kings of the Giant World, Poison World, Rat World, Scorpio World, and the rest of the higher and middle realms showed a trace of hesitation and fear. If Sword World was enraged and took revenge, they were only higher and middle realms after all. They wouldn't be able to withstand the slaughter of Sword World. Don't listen to his threats. Wu Shuiwang suddenly opened his mouth and chuckled. He raised his voice and said, "Right now, more than 20 worlds have joined forces with us 6 great worlds as the leaders. You all are just assisting from the side. Even if the Sword World wants revenge, it will come to us 6 great worlds. Everyone, there is no need to worry. Moreover, the Sword World's sovereign lord isn't crazy. Why would he take revenge for a true spirit? If it really comes to that, it'll just be a realm war. With more than 20 realms joining forces, even Sword World won't be able to withstand it." The Shaman Blood King's words once again strengthened the confidence of many high-grade and middle-grade realms. This battle was indeed instigated by the Witch World, Sky Eye World, Stone World, Radiant World, Golden Crow World, and Blood World. Even if Sword World wanted revenge, the 6 superworlds would take the lead. They didn't have to worry at all. Those who have nothing to do with this, it's best if you don't get involved. Don't hurt the innocent. The Cold Eye King looked around and didn't hide the threat and killing intent in his voice. In front of the 6 superworlds, more than 20 realms, and more than 200 kings, the pressure was immense. Not many kings dared to step forward. "Ah!" The Nightmare Dragon King suddenly laughed and said, "Using numbers to bully the weak, you kings are truly shameless." The Chi Dragon King ignored the Cold Eye King's threat and was the first to step forward. After a long moment of hesitation, Immortal King Yulan also stepped forward after the Chi Dragon King and came to Sword World's side. "Many thanks, fellow Taoists." Lu Yun and the other peak lords were moved by this scene. In truth, there were some realms that were on good terms with Sword World. There were also some kings who stood on Sword World's side despite the great pressure. However, their numbers were still too few compared to the 200 kings on the other side. The two sides faced off. A great battle between Grotto Heaven Realm kings was about to break out. End of chapter. Chapter 2890. Kill our way out. Lu Yun transmitted this message to the kings around him. They had fewer people on their side. Including the kings who'd stepped forward to help them, there were only about 20 of them. On the other hand, the Frost Eye King and the others had more than 200. That was a 10-fold difference. Kill! The Frost Eye King, Stone Fiend King, and the others didn't give Sword World much time to react. With a wave of their arms, the kings all raised their paradises and charged forward. Hum. Sword hums rang out from the 8 peak masters' bodies at the same time. Behind the 8 of them, a series of perfected paradise appeared. Every single paradise gave off a different sword will. Some were fierce and murderous, some were dense with demonic energy, some were illusory, and some were radiant with Buddha light. The only thing the 8 perfect paradises had in common was that they all spewed out endless sword energy, tearing apart the stars around them. The 8 peak masters had known each other for many years. Needless to say, the 8 paradises had established a certain connection and formed an enormous sword formation. With the 8 sword Tao paradises as the foundation, the 8 peak masters formed a great formation of 10,000 swords, forming an enormous sword-shaped wheel that charged outward. Roar! The Chi Dragon King let out a long roar and also released a perfect paradise behind him, brimming with cold energy. As soon as the perfect paradise was released, a layer of frost formed in the surrounding stars. Any weapons and immortal arts rushing toward it were all frozen and sealed in ice. Some kings' paradises weren't strong enough and even froze as soon as they approached. Cracks appeared on them, indicating that they were on the verge of collapse. The Chi Dragon King's battle prowess was among the top in the Grotto Heaven realm. Immortal King Yulan also released her perfect paradise. Floral fragrance filled the air, confusing one's mind and causing their blood and energy to weaken. The Frost Eye King opened his heavenly eye and formed a perfect paradise with his cold eye to fight the Chi Dragon King. The Shaman Blood King propped up a perfect paradise brimming with blood energy, filled with endless curses and emitting an aura that made one's heart palpitate. God King Sunglari's golden blood and energy surged as his body shone with boundless light. The perfect paradise behind him formed the shape of a golden character, bursting with dazzling brilliance that cleansed all darkness in the cosmos. King Lu Wu's perfected paradise was ablaze with raging fire. The essence sun fire was almost tangible, like a volcano that was spewing out golden lava. Inside the stone Shua King's Grotto Heaven, there seemed to be a godly stone that was constantly emitting godly light that landed on his body. His aura was also rising. Inside Bloodly King's complete Grotto Heaven, there was a blood-colored lake. Blood-colored vines as thick as pythons were wriggling out of it. Scarlet blood flowed out of the vines, and circles of sharp fangs grew on their heads, emitting a nauseating aura. The 6 pinnacle kings from the super great worlds immediately charged toward the 8 peak masters, the Hornless Dragon King, and the others. The remaining 200 immortal kings followed closely behind. Boom, boom, boom. The collision between the heavenly abodes shook the starry sky. Dazzling light shone, and visible shockwaves swept out in all directions. This momentum is too terrifying. More than 200 kings fighting, and many of them are even peak kings. It's been a long time since I've seen such a battle. The Sword Realm can actually survive the first wave of attacks. The 8 peak masters of the Sword Realm have been famous for many years, and they also used the 10,000 sword formation. They should be able to last a few more rounds. Su Zimo was in the middle of the battle, and his expression was calm. Although he was protected by the 10,000 sword formation of the 8 peak masters, this sword formation would not be able to last long. Once the 10,000 sword formation was broken, he would be the first to die. The other true immortals of the Sword Realm, Yun Ting and Kitsune, would not be able to escape. In a battle between kings, it was very difficult to survive. Su Zimo took a deep breath. His left eye suddenly became as black as ink, and his right eye became as white as jade. 2 rays of godly light, one black and one white, shot out from his eyes and landed on the starry sky below his feet. They quickly condensed into yin and yang fishes, connected head and tail, and kept spinning and entangling. There was yang in yin and yin in yang. This looked like a supreme theurgy of yin and yang. What is that Sword Realm Su Zhu doing? Is she going to release a supreme theurgy to join the battle? A king saw this scene and couldn't help but laugh. The difference in strength between the Grotto Heaven realm and the True Self realm is like heaven and earth. What's the use of a supreme theurgy? Another king shook his head. At this moment, Su Zimo took out the Tai Horsetail whisk and condensed his true yuan. The jade handle was the shaft, and the 3,000 silver strands were condensed into fine hairs. The tiny horsetail whisk in his hand was like a jade brush, and it quickly drew a few mysterious runes on the yin-yang fish's diagram under his feet. No one in the surroundings could recognize these runes. If immortal King Ling Long was present, she would definitely recognize that these runes came from the yin-yang talisman scripture. Tai yin-yang escape, Su Zimo shouted and threw the tiny horsetail whisk on the yin-yang fish's diagram, and it turned into a perfect arc in the middle of the yin-yang fish's diagram. The runes on the yin-yang fish's diagram shone, and together with the yin-yang fish's diagram, they actually tore the surrounding space apart. Su Zimo moved and stepped onto the yin-yang fish's diagram. Although it was a battle between Grotto Heaven Realm kings, most of the king's attention was on Su Zimo. Everyone was a little confused when they saw this scene. The yin-yang fish's diagram under Su Zimo's feet was like a huge teleportation array. The next moment, right in front of countless gazes, the yin-yang Pisces painting with mysterious runes disappeared into thin air with Su Zimo in tow. The kings who were still fighting fiercely were stunned. The battle in the starry sky paused for a moment. Not to mention the people on the battlefield, even the emperors of the 3,000 worlds and the creatures of the 10,000 races who were watching the battle were dumbfounded. Where is he? What's going on? It seems like he tore open the void and escaped? How is that possible? Only Grotto Heaven Realm kings have the power to tear open the void. This scene happened too suddenly and too strangely. It was beyond everyone's expectations. Normally, only Grotto Heaven Realm kings could tear open the void and enter space tunnels to perform long-distance teleportation. Sword Realm Su Zhu was only at the Kongming Realm, so it was impossible for her to have such power. What was even stranger was that the battle between the kings was so intense that the surrounding space was torn apart and collapsed. It was impossible to build a space tunnel. Even the kings present were unable to teleport or tear open the void to leave the battlefield. However, that true immortal just now had disappeared in front of everyone's eyes during the chaotic battle between the kings. No one knew where he went. The creatures of the 3,000 worlds watching didn't know whether to laugh or cry for a moment. The 200 or so monarchs were engaged in an intense battle over a single true spirit. However, the true spirit had suddenly disappeared, leaving the 200 or so monarchs staring blankly at one another. End of chapter. Chapter 2891. The cosmos outside the celestial bestowment realm. The fierce battle came to a sudden halt due to an accident. The kings on the battlefield froze in place, not knowing what to do. Nominally, the battle was the Stone Elemental King and the others attacking the 8 Peak Lords of Sword World. But in reality, everyone knew that their real target was Sword World Su Zhu. But now, Su Zhu of the Sword Realm had disappeared. Were they still going to fight? If they did, they'd be baffled and would have to grit their teeth and endure. But if they didn't, what should they do next? Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Cave Monarch, Luwu Monarch, Brilliant Sun Monarch, Bloodly Monarch, and Blood Shaman King, the 6 pinnacle kings from super great worlds, all had ugly expressions except for Blood Shaman King. They'd planned for a long time, contacting more than 20 realms and mobilizing more than 200 kings to kill Sword World Su Zhu. But now, Sword World Su Zhu had escaped right under their noses. They couldn't accept this at all. On Sword World's side, the 8 Peak Lords were naturally overjoyed. Su Zimo's sudden use of a secret art to escape from the battlefield would save him from danger. Also, it would protect the other true immortals of Sword World. The 200 kings on the other side couldn't attack them now that they'd lost their target. Sword World, on the other hand, had no qualms and had the initiative. That secret art can tear through the void and forcibly take him away from the battlefield. It's definitely not something he can fully control at his cultivation level. The Stone Elemental King was the first to calm down. According to my calculations, even if he can use that secret art to escape, he won't be able to get far. The Frost Eye King, Sunglory King, and the others quickly reacted and nodded. If we give chase now, we'll definitely be able to catch up to him. After all, they'd lived for hundreds of thousands of years and came from a super realm. They were knowledgeable and experienced, so they quickly deduced this possibility based on their experience. However, the cosmos is boundless. We can't be sure which direction he fled in. Sunglory frowned. If we go in the wrong direction, we'll probably end up with nothing. At this moment, a king from the Heavenly Eye race stepped forward and chuckled. This kid can escape from this place, but he can't escape from my pursuit. When the Cold Eye Monarch saw this person standing out, he immediately reacted. He was overjoyed and quickly said, "Brother Tsang Mu, it seems like we have to rely on you." Then, the Cold Eye Monarch looked at Godly King Ryeo, Stone Puppet Monarch, and the others and said proudly, "Brother Tsang Mu has cultivated one of the 3 great eye techniques of the Heavenly Eye clan, Polychoria. He has unfathomable power. No one can escape the pursuit of the dual pupils." When the Sword World saw this, Lu Yun and the others exchanged glances as their hearts sank. He could not allow King Tsang Mu to use his Polychoria and track down Su Zimo. Lu Yun called out softly. Although everyone had temporarily stopped fighting, they were still in a state of battle. The Sword World's 8 great peak masters swiftly unleashed the myriad sword grand array and charged towards the Heavenly Eye clan. "Stop them." The Cold Eye Monarch looked at the 200 kings around him and shouted. The battle between the kings erupted once again. The myriad sword grand array of the 8 great peak masters was already very difficult to defend against the attacks of 200 kings, let alone break through their blockade. King Tsang Mu took a deep breath and opened the bloodstain between his eyebrows. His Polychoria had opened. Even the starry sky around them trembled slightly. The celestial eye between Tsang Mu's eyebrows contained 2 pupils that looked extremely strange. Many kings stared at the 2 pupils for a while and felt a stabbing pain in their eyes. They hurriedly averted their gaze. Tsang Mu's Polychoria released a ray of light that landed on the nearby cosmos. It seemed to pierce through countless dimensions and gradually revealed traces of something. After a while, Tsang Mu's Polychoria closed. He opened his eyes again and pointed in a direction, saying in a deep voice, "Over there." Brother Stone Puppet was right, that kid didn't get far. However, he's using an extremely fast movement technique to escape into the distance. We have to chase after him as soon as possible. Let's go. The Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Puppet Monarch, Sunbright Monarch, and 6 other kings of the 6 great realms chased in that direction under Tsang Mu's lead. There were dozens of kings in this group. There were still more than 100 kings left on the battlefield outside the Celestial Bestowment Realm, fighting the 8 great peak masters, Nightmare Dragon King, Immortal King Yulan, and the others. The difference in numbers was too great. The 8 great peak masters grew increasingly anxious as they watched the Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Puppet Monarch, and the others leave. However, with more than 100 kings blocking their way, they wouldn't be able to break through in a short amount of time. It didn't take long for the Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Puppet Monarch, and the rest of the kings to disappear from sight. There was nothing to see when dozens of kings chased after a sacred spirit. In everyone's minds, Su Zhu of the Sword World was dead without a doubt. Most of the kings of the 6 great realms remained to watch the battle between the kings. Lu Yun and the others knew that the longer they delayed, the greater the danger Su Zimo would be in. They had to hurry over. Almost all the kings of the 6 great realms have left. How dare you kings of the 6 great realms stop us? Lu Yun roared. Though the Shaman Blood King had persuaded the 20 great realms to form an alliance for the time being, it was only a temporary alliance. Lu Yun had noticed this flaw, which was why he'd questioned them. Just now kings of the 6 great realms were here, so the kings of the 6 great realms had nothing to fear. All they had to do was follow the 6 great realms. Now, the Cold Eye Monarch, Stone Puppet Monarch, and the other kings of the 6 great realms were chasing after Su Zhu. Almost all the kings of the 6 great realms who'd stayed behind to stop the Sword World were kings of the 6 great realms. The kings of the 6 great realms were startled by Lu Yun's words. The Chi Dragon King let out a long roar and transformed into his true form. Hundreds of meters long, he hovered in space and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath in the direction of the kings of the 6 great realms. Among the kings of the 6 great realms, A few ordinary immortal kings were frozen into ice sculptures on the spot, their nascent spirits destroyed and their bodies destroyed. Some of the kings of the 6 great realms had the protection of their grotto heavens. Although they'd survived, the grotto heavens behind them shattered one after another. The Chi-Dragon King suddenly unleashed his might and took advantage of the kings of the 6 great realms' hesitation to kill a few of them on the spot. The 8 Peak Lords also saw the opportunity. The myriad sword formation unleashed dazzling beams of sword energy. The 8 grotto heavens of Sword Tao resonated with each other. Sword energy crisscrossed the cosmos and formed a net of sword energy that instantly killed the kings of the 6 great realms. End of chapter. Chapter 2892. In the face of the 8 Peak Lords and the Hornless Dragon King's might, the remaining kings from the higher and middle worlds scowled and wanted to retreat. Without the peak kings of the major worlds, they were still a little wary of the 8 crazed Peak Lords of Sword World. At the end of the day, they weren't in the right in this matter, and it was too shameful. In the Fiend battlefield, battles between peers depended on one's own strength. But now, so many kings had banded together to kill a true spirit. Even if someone from Sword World killed them all, their worlds wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And now, looking at the dozens of monarch corpses floating in space, the monarchs of these realms gradually calmed down. Kings from Scorpio, Black Raven, Thousand Spiders, and Dragon Crane were the first to withdraw from the battlefield. As they retreated, the remaining kings also retreated. Sword World Suzhou was no longer here. If they continued to fight to the death, they'd feel like they were being used as cannon fodder. Let's go! Not daring to hesitate, they steered the boat in the direction Frost Eye, Stonecutter, and the others had disappeared. The denizens of the 3,000 worlds weren't in a hurry to return to their worlds. Seeing this scene, everyone followed one after another, wanting to see if there were any follow-up developments. Even if Lu Yun and the others catch up, they won't make it in time. Indeed, Sword World Suzhou is only a true spirit. How can she escape the pursuit of Peak Kings? Not to mention, there's a king with polychoria in that group. Let's follow them. If Sword World Suzhou dies, Lu Yun and the others might erupt into a great battle in their fury. The kings of the 3,000 worlds discussed in hushed tones as they chased after the group. The Tai Yin Yang escape. This was Su Zimo's greatest gain in recent years from studying the Yin Yang talisman scripture. Immortal Queen Ling Long had once said that the arcane scripture, a taboo tome created by the Empyrean Empress, was all-encompassing. Divination, geomancy, numerology, physiognomy, dream divination, fortune-telling, astrology, astronomical phenomena, talismans, and so on. There were 3 chapters in the arcane scripture, led by Tai. The other 2 were the Chimen Duanjia and the 6th divine lesson. The patriarch of the academy got the Chimen Duanjia, while the immortal King Ling Long got the Luren divine lesson. The last 2 chapters were created by the 9 Heavens Xian Envy Empress. As for the Tai chapter, it was a Tao art that the 9 Heavens Xian Envy Empress had comprehended through the Yin Yang charm scripture. It was quite special, so neither the patriarch of the academy nor the immortal King Ling Long had been able to inherit it. Over the years, Su Zimo would stop to read the words in the Yin Yang charm scripture in his spare time, but he didn't gain anything. One day, he looked at the Tai horsetail whisk floating in his sea of consciousness and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. This horsetail whisk was called the Tai horsetail whisk. After the 9th Heaven Xian Envy Empress comprehended a Taoist technique from the Yin Yang charm scripture, she named it Tai. This should not be a coincidence, but more like a hint. From that day onwards, Su Zimo would hold the Bodhi bead in his left hand and the Tai horsetail whisk in his right hand while comprehending the Yin Yang talisman scripture. He could feel the connection between this weapon and the Yin Yang talisman scripture. Over time, he gradually gained some insights. At first, he couldn't connect the Tai horsetail whisk with the Yin Yang talisman scripture, mainly because his thinking was limited. He had always regarded the Tai horsetail whisk as a divine weapon. But from another perspective, the Tai horsetail whisk could also be regarded as a divine brush. The 3,000 silver threads could be regarded as the brush's hair, and the handle of the horsetail whisk could be regarded as the brush's body. Since it was a divine brush, it could use the Tai horsetail whisk to imitate the unique talismans in the yin-yang charm scripture to perform special Taoist techniques. The Tai horsetail whisk's existence was inextricably linked to yin and yang. The Tai horsetail whisk was composed of the jade handle and the whisk. The jade handle was hard, and the whisk was soft. If the jade handle was regarded as the yang of the Taoist techniques, then the whisk was the yin of the Taoist techniques. The Tai horsetail whisk itself was a weapon that perfectly integrated yin and yang. As he continued to comprehend, Su Zimo gradually comprehended the secret method of the Tai yin-yang escape with the help of the divine stones, Zhu Zhao and Yuing. This secret method didn't have any killing or attacking power. He activated the power of yin and yang within the divine stones to form the yin-yang twin fish diagram. Using the Tai horsetail whisk as a brush, he wrote a few special talismans on the diagram to form a formation. At the same time, he threw the Tai horsetail whisk into the yin-yang twin fish diagram as the foundation of the formation. Due to the Tai horsetail whisk's unique characteristics of yin and yang, there was no rejection when it was thrown into the yin-yang twin fish diagram. The yin-yang twin fish diagram, the special talismans, and the Tai horsetail whisk combined to form this secret method. It allowed Su Zimo to have the ability to tear through the void and create space tunnels when he was only at the true self realm. Su Zimo didn't know what the Tai chapter of the technique repository was. Now that he had the Tai horsetail whisk and the yin-yang charm scripture in this life, he might be able to comprehend his own Tai Taoist technique. Of course, the Stone Demon King and the others guessed correctly. Although his primordial spirit had already surpassed the void transformation stage of the true self realm, he couldn't use this secret method for a long time to travel through space tunnels. Not long later, he left the space tunnel and returned to the stars. Using the Tai yin-yang escape art to leave the battlefield could allow the 8 peak masters, Yun Ting, Kitsune, and the others from the sword world to escape danger. The Cold Eye King and the others' target was him. If they saw that he had left and lost their target, there was no need for this battle to continue. Leaving the battlefield meant leaving the celestial tribute world. This was the most important step in Su Zimo's plan. If he was near the celestial tribute world, there would be too many variables. Su Zimo didn't include the Cold Eye King, the Stone Demon King, and the others in this plan. He didn't know that the Cold Eye King, the Stone Demon King, and dozens of other kings had already chased after him with the help of the Polychoria King. From the beginning to the end, he only had one target: the Academy Patriarch. After he ascended, the Academy Patriarch was the only one who made him feel threatened. When he ascended, although his Dragon Phoenix true body was destroyed by the Cloud Underworld King, it was also because of the Academy Patriarch's plan. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that after he ascended, his every move was under the surveillance of the Academy Patriarch. Every time he thought about this, he would feel a chill down his spine. In the face of the clan leader of the Academy, he even felt powerless to resist. Even when he was facing the Blood Demon Dao Lord on the Tianhuang mainland, he didn't feel this way. The Blood Demon Dao Lord was very ambitious, but he couldn't compare to the Academy Patriarch. The Academy Patriarch was always calm and collected. Yet he was hiding behind the scenes, stirring up the wind and stirring up the clouds with one turn of the hand. No one could hide anything from the Academy Patriarch. Su Zimo couldn't forget that omnipresent pressure. Chapter 2893. He calculated all the heavenly secrets, fate, people's hearts, and karma. A flawless plan. The plan that the Academy Patriarch set for him back then could be said to be perfect. The sect master of the Academy was indeed worthy of being called a meticulous plan. If not for the appearance of the Emperor's tomb and the resurrection of immortal Emperor Chenmu, the Academy Patriarch would have obtained everything. After cultivating the yin-yang talisman scripture, Su Zimo believed that the Academy Patriarch would not be able to deduce his whereabouts and information. But more than 1,000 years ago, when he returned from the celestial tribute world, he still felt a sense of danger. Although he used the name Su Zhu, he did not expose his identity. But there were many eyes in the celestial tribute world, and he killed Xiang Meng of the Heavenly Eye race in the evil demon battlefield. The more people he came into contact with, the more information he would leave behind, and the more karma he would have. These karma intertwined, accumulated, and settled. Others might not be able to sense it, but he believed that the Academy Patriarch would be able to deduce it. Therefore, when he returned from the celestial tribute world, he had already planned for the worst. The Academy Patriarch already knew of his whereabouts. And he was in the sword world. Even if the Academy Patriarch had infinite wisdom, he could not enter the sword world, kill him, and take away the grade 12 creation Qinglian. The only chance was to wait for him to leave the sword world. Therefore, when 1,000 years passed and Su Zimo could enter the celestial tribute world for the second time, he did not act rashly. To him, the real danger was not the revenge of the heavenly eye world, but the Academy Patriarch. Su Zimo believed that the Academy Patriarch would not let him go. And if he contacted the Emperor of the Sword World, he would not be able to hide from the Academy Patriarch. The Academy Patriarch was flawless. Only one existence had been able to hide from his calculations. Wu Dao's true body. This was also Su Zimo's greatest trump card and secret. However, at that time, Su Zimo had lost contact with Wu Dao's main body, so he had been biding his time and waiting for an opportunity. When Wu Dao's main body returned to the upper realm, Su Zimo decided to head to the celestial tribute world. To be more precise, his target was the Patriarch of the Academy from the moment he set out. This situation was not complicated at all. In fact, it was extremely simple, because the Patriarch of the Academy would definitely do something to him. Therefore, Su Zimo used himself as bait to lure the Patriarch of the Academy out. When he learned that Lu Yun's message had failed, he knew that the Patriarch of the Academy had made his move. The Patriarch of the Academy had schemed against him. This time, Su Zimo was going to make use of Wu Dao, who was not in the 5 elements and was free from samsara, to plot against the Patriarch of the Academy and get rid of this threat completely. Su Zimo released the great ping wings and turned into a golden light, speeding through the starry sky. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's vision blurred as though he had barged into another space. The surrounding starry sky had already disappeared. The surroundings were unusually familiar. It was Heaven and Earth Academy. Not far away was the Dao Heart Staircase of Heaven and Earth Academy. Beside the Dao Heart Staircase stood a figure in Taoist robes with his back facing Su Zimo. At that moment, he turned around slightly with a faint smile on his face. It was the Patriarch of the Academy. Su Zimo's expression was calm. This could not be Heaven and Earth Academy. Although the Patriarch of the Academy was powerful, he could not teleport him to Heaven and Earth Academy instantly. This should be a scene set up by the Patriarch of the Academy with his dermic powers. Glorious Sun God King said, "Legend has it that the 8 inner hidden gates formation has 8 gates: opening gate, rest gate, life gate, pain gate, stop gate, view gate, and death gate. Each gate leads to a different space. Opening, rest, and life are the 3 auspicious gates. Death, shock, and pain are the 3 ominous gates. Blocking and view are the middle gates. Once you take the wrong step and enter one of the 3 ominous gates, you'll definitely die. If you enter blocking or view, your life or death is unknown. Only by entering opening, rest, and life will you have a chance of survival." King Lu Wu nodded with a solemn expression. It said that the 8 inner hidden gates formation originated from the Forbidden Secret Manual, Technique Repository. I wonder who set it up and why? How can one determine which gates are the 3 auspicious gates? Someone asked. Glorious Sun God King shook his head slightly and sneered. If it could be determined so easily, the 8 inner hidden gates formation wouldn't be so terrifying. It said that the 8 gates can change at any time. Even if one chooses the right 3 auspicious gates, if there's a change, the auspicious gate will become an ominous gate. Everyone's hearts turned cold when they heard that. End of chapter. Chapter 2894. Among the dozens of kings present, only Blood King Wu had a calm expression, without the slightest trace of panic. He naturally knew that this scene before him was the work of that lord. He was also the one who had secretly pushed Su Zhu to this point according to that lord's instructions. Looking at the solemn expressions of the kings around him, Blood King Wu coughed lightly and said indifferently, "No matter who set up this 8 gates hidden formation, they don't seem to have much hostility towards us. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just trapped us here. In my opinion, we should wait patiently and not act rashly." Although the other kings were still nervous, they had no other choice. They knew almost nothing about the 8 gates hidden formation. Although there was a chance of survival, if they took the wrong step, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. The kings had painstakingly cultivated to the grotto heaven realm. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one would take such a huge risk. Beside the Tao Heart staircase, the Academy Patriarch's eyes were like the deep starry sky, unfathomable. "I have already blocked the heavenly secrets and isolated the senses here. Not only can the teleportation talisman not return to the sword world, even if an emperor investigates here, he won't be able to find anything unusual," the Academy Patriarch muttered to himself as he deduced. After a while, the Academy Patriarch's eyes regained their clarity. He looked at Su Zimo and smiled. "I have already calculated all the variables on you. You were lucky last time, but your luck won't always be so good. This time, you won't be able to escape." Su Zimo raised his eyebrows slightly and asked in return, "Who said I was going to escape?" The Academy Patriarch looked at Su Zimo with interest and asked, "Do you have a backup plan?" Without waiting for Su Zimo's reply, the Academy Sect Master continued, "I forgot to remind you that in this 8 gates hidden formation that I set up, even if a peak Imperial Emperor barges in, he will be trapped inside for a long time. This time is enough for me to do anything. Therefore, even if the Iron Crown Sword Emperor of the Sword World descends, he won't be able to save you." Su Zimo was silent. The Patriarch of the Academy was still the Patriarch of the Academy. Once he made a move, he was almost invincible. "Actually, I was happy from the bottom of my heart when I deduced that you might still be alive." The Patriarch of the Academy did not hide his excitement and pride as he was about to get Qinglian, who was a 12th grade creation. He gestured and said, "Do you know the joy of regaining something you lost? Well, I'm glad that you're still alive." The Patriarch of the Academy was never stingy in sharing his feelings with a dying man. He also enjoyed seeing the despair, helplessness, and unwillingness that gradually appeared on the other party's face under the constant provocation of these words. However, from beginning to end, Su Zimo was very calm. It was so calm that it was a little strange. "You are very smart and talented." The Patriarch of the Academy said, "I really wanted to take you as my disciple. I also gave you a choice. Unfortunately, you didn't take it. I'm your master. Why did you resist? Why did you disobey me? Why don't you be obedient and give me your creation, Qinglian? You may have some backup plans, trump cards, or schemes, but," after a pause, the Patriarch of the Academy said, "There's one thing that I may not have taught you. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks are vulnerable." So, the Patriarch of the Academy's eyes suddenly burst out a faint divine light. He looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and shouted, "A teacher for a day is a father for life. Unfilial disciple, kneel down." The Patriarch of the Academy was not targeting Su Zimo's physical body and primordial spirit, but his Taoist heart. The reason why the Taoist heart ladder was set up around them was that the Patriarch of the Academy took Su Zimo as his disciple here. The Patriarch of the Academy had once stepped on the 10th step of the Taoist heart ladder, but fell from it. He had never been defeated. Therefore, this time, not only did he want to obtain the 12th grade creation Qinglian's body, he also wanted to break Su Zimo's Taoist heart. Since he could not step on the 10th step of the Taoist heart ladder, he would trample Su Zimo's Taoist heart under his feet. Unfortunately, he had underestimated Su Zimo's Taoist heart. What was Wu Dao's heart? What was Wu Dao's will? Great fearlessness, great courage, great boldness, and great wisdom. Even if there were thousands of people, he would still go forward. Wu Dao was resistance. Wu Dao was born because he would not give in. It was simply impossible to use the etiquette of father and son, monarch and minister, to restrain the martial way. Su Zimo's Taoist heart did not waver. He sighed faintly and said, "Patriarch, do you know why I lured you out?" The Patriarch of the Academy was about to say something when his heart skipped a beat as though he had sensed something. The Patriarch of the Academy exclaimed softly. Someone was breaking through the 8 gates hidden formation and their speed was extremely fast. Normally speaking, one would lose their sense of direction after falling into the 8 gates hidden formation. Although there were 8 gates, one would not be able to determine the direction. However, this person seemed to be running in a straight line, charging straight at him. The obstacles of the 8 gates hidden formation seemed to be unable to stop this person's path at all. However, in the blink of an eye, a purple-robed figure walked out of the surrounding fog. He wore a cold silver mask on his face and his eyes were deep. His entire body was shrouded in a mysterious aura that was unfathomable. Araki Takashi of the Demon Region? The Patriarch of the Academy murmured softly. Back then, when Wu Dao's true body wreaked havoc in the Zhenmu mountain range, the Patriarch of the Academy was hiding nearby and snatched the Taiching Jade Book. Naturally, he recognized him. The Patriarch of the Academy frowned. The appearance of Araki Takashi of the Demon Region had indeed exceeded his deductions. Moreover, he had tried to deduce Araki Takashi of the Demon Region several times but to no avail. Araki Takashi of the Demon Region seemed to be shrouded in a layer of dense fog. At this moment, the Patriarch of the Academy's eyes turned. He glanced at Suzumo and then looked at Araki Takashi of the Demon Region. He seemed to have thought of something and gradually narrowed his eyes. He had a feeling that there must be some special relationship between Suzumo and Araki Takashi of the Demon Region, because, in many cases, the appearance of the two was too coincidental. He merely chuckled and asked in return, "Do I need to use my true self to deal with you? You want to scheme against me at the greater mastery of the Grotto Heaven realm? Who gave you the confidence?" The moment the Patriarch of the Academy said that, the silent Wu Dao's true self suddenly attacked. Since the Patriarch of the Academy did not reveal his true self, he would beat him until he did. Wu Dao's true self did not move much. He merely took a step forward and caused the surrounding void to tremble, causing the Dao Heart Ladder to collapse. The entire world seemed to be unable to bear the burden and let out a mournful wail. With just a single step, the world collapsed. With just a single step, Wu Dao's true self had already arrived in front of the Patriarch of the Academy. He raised his hand and punched. It was a simple punch. It did not seem fancy, nor was it any divine ability or secret technique. However, all of Wu Dao's techniques and Wu Dao's will were contained in this punch. The great Dao was simple, returning to the basics. Seeing Wu Dao's true self rushing over, the Patriarch of the Academy's expression did not change. However, a trace of mockery flashed across his eyes as he said slowly, "I've said it before. In the face of absolute power, all schemes are vulnerable. Today, I'll let you see what the Emperor realm is." The Patriarch of the Academy stopped abruptly before he could finish his words. He could no longer continue. Wu Dao's true self did not say a word. That punch was already coming over. That kind of bravery and determination, that kind of direct to one's heart, that kind of delight in vengeance, that kind of fearlessness, great courage, great boldness, and great wisdom. Like a volcano erupting, the waves surging, the power and will came crashing down. Suffocating. The Patriarch of the Academy was all too familiar with this kind of power and will. Back then, he had felt it on the 10th step of the Dao Heart Ladder. When the 10th step was condensed, it even resonated with the Great Tao and attracted the celestial sound of the Great Dharma Conch and Great Dharma Drum. The Patriarch of the Academy instantly calmed his mind and punched back, facing the fist of Wu Dao's true self. He did not dodge and there was no need to dodge. The Emperor realm. This was what he was truly relying on. If he had not stepped into the Emperor realm, he would not be so confident. Although this body was not his true self, it was the original body that he condensed using the Pure Jade Book. The strength of the doppelganger method of the 3 Pure Jade Book was that the doppelganger condensed using the book could maintain the same realm as the true self. In other words, the Patriarch of the Academy was in the Emperor realm, and the original body condensed was also in the Emperor realm. Although this original body did not have the vital chi and blood of the primordial spirit, the pure jade book was a body refining method, and it was fierce in close combat. In addition, the original body belonged to the Emperor Realm body, so the Patriarch of the Academy could withstand the suppression of the will of Wu Dao's true self and counterattack with a punch. Su Zimo was not surprised that the Patriarch of the Academy had stepped into the Emperor Realm. With the talent and wisdom of the Patriarch of the Academy, half of the bloodline of the Witch Tribe, and the secret method of the Witch Tribe, the inheritance of the technique repository, and the complete forbidden secret book, the 3 pure jade book, it would be strange if he did not step into the Emperor Realm. Back then, the Patriarch of the Academy and immortal King Ling Long both received the inheritance of the 9th Heaven Xian and V Great Emperor, but immortal King Ling Long was suppressed by the Patriarch of the Academy. The strength of the Patriarch of the Academy was evident. The previous Patriarch of the Academy had left a backup plan, a picture, and Elder Xian's protection, but the Patriarch of the Academy had still schemed against him in the end. On the surface, the Patriarch of the Academy was unparalleled in scheming, but he had completely eliminated the backup plan of Elder Xian and the previous Patriarch of the Academy by relying on his strength as a quasi-emperor. Without enough strength, one could only scheme and scheme. In the end, it was still a pavilion on the sand, and it would be difficult to achieve great things. Powerful combat strength, unparalleled wisdom, and unimaginable ambition. This was the Patriarch of the Academy, who had almost no weaknesses. Moreover, after learning that Lu Yun's transmission had failed, Su Zimo was almost certain that the Patriarch of the Academy had become an emperor. Only a great emperor could conceal the secrets of the heavens and cut off the traces of an emperor's message talisman. This battle was not easy. Chapter 2896. Bang. Wu Dao's original body and the Patriarch of the Academy collided with each other with a muffled sound. In the next moment, the sect master of the Academy's body shook, and a look of astonishment flashed in his eyes. He was sent flying by the punch of the martial Dao true body, and the clothes on his arms were completely torn. This was beyond the Patriarch of the Academy's expectation. After all, this original body was condensed from the pure jade book. It had a strong physical body and was invincible in close combat. However, the original body in the Emperor Realm was forced to retreat by Araki Takashi, who was in the culmination of the Tao Insight Realm. But this only surprised the Patriarch of the Academy a little. Araki Takashi's strength was beyond his expectation, but he was still far from being a threat to him. Although the avatar condensed from the Jade Book of 3 pure Jade Book was in the same realm as his original body, the avatar didn't have vital spirit, chi, and blood, so it couldn't release divine skills or secret skills. If Araki Takashi couldn't even defeat one of his avatars, he wouldn't be qualified to force him to show his original body. What's more, he had 2 such avatars. Wu Dao's original body gained the upper hand with one punch. He didn't stop and moved forward again, raising his hand and punching again. This fist was like a burning meteor, as if it would explode in the next moment, and the surrounding air had been burned. This time, the Patriarch of the Academy wanted to dodge. But soon, the Patriarch of the Academy realized that Wu Dao's punch had blocked all his escape routes. Facing the punch of Wu Dao's original body, he had to take it, even if he didn't want to. The Patriarch of the Academy lost the initiative and didn't dare to take the punch of Wu Dao's original body with one arm. He could only raise his arms in front of his body in a cross shape. Bang! Another muffled sound. The Patriarch of the Academy was once again sent flying by Wu Dao's punch. There was no chi or blood on the body of the primeval Lord of Heaven, but there were some obvious tears and burn marks on the body. Bang! Wu Dao stepped forward and punched again. The Patriarch of the Academy retreated again. This primeval body was completely suppressed by Wu Dao's original body, without the slightest strength to resist. At this rate, this body of primordial beginning would probably not be able to withstand more than 10 punches and would be blown up by Wu Dao's true body. The Patriarch of the Academy was not in a hurry. Even though Wu Dao's original body seemed to have the absolute upper hand in this situation, he wasn't worried at all. There was still a faint smile on his face. Suddenly, At the side of Wu Dao's original body, another figure rushed out. His hands were constantly changing, spewing out streaks of purple light, which transformed into numerous divine weapons and charged towards Wu Dao's original body. It was the second incarnation of the Patriarch of the Academy. It was the numinous treasure body formed from the prime purity jade scroll. This was the numinous treasure body that transformed into the appearance of the 8th elder of the Academy. At greater mastery of the primeval body, it would emit a green glow. As for the numinous treasure body, it would emit a purple spirit light. That purple spirit light contained the Tao techniques of the prime purity jade scroll and could conjure countless divine weapons of the same realm to attack in an extremely ferocious manner. Coupled with the numinous treasure body, the primeval body counterattacked. At the same time, another figure in red robes appeared behind Su Zimo. Following closely was the numinous treasure body. The primeval beginnings body was already somewhat fragmented by Wu Dao's original body. It could not hold on for long and soon turned into ashes. The Supreme Purity Jade Book and Jade Purity Jade Book appeared as well. After all, the 3 Purity Jade Books had been passed down for a long time and contained endless Tao techniques. Even in Wu Dao's purgatory, they could be preserved perfectly. Su Zimo reached out and grabbed the Tai Ching Jade Book that was closest to him that was emitting a purple light. Just as his palm was about to make contact with the Tai Ching Jade Book, the void in front of him shook slightly and a figure appeared amidst the raging flames. The person who arrived wore a Confucian robe and had a broad forehead. His eyes were as deep as the sea and he had a faint smile on his face. "Disciple, I've said long ago that you can't win against me." The Patriarch of the Academy had finally revealed his true body. To be precise, the Patriarch of the Academy and the primordial spirit body targeted Su Zimo's Qinglian's true body at the same time. However, the Patriarch of the Academy's true body was hidden and even escaped the senses of Wu Dao's original body. The Patriarch of the Academy and Su Zimo were extremely close to each other and Wu Dao's original body could not make it back in time. The 3 clones were merely bait. When Su Zimo thought that he had turned the tables, the Patriarch of the Academy's true body would reveal itself and give him a fatal blow. In the Wu Dao's purgatory, the Patriarch of the Academy's expression was as usual and he was perfectly fine. The power of Wu Dao's purgatory could not hurt the Patriarch of the Academy in the slightest. That was the strength of the Emperor realm. End of chapter. Chapter 2897. Disciple, I've told you long ago that you can't beat me. The Patriarch of the Academy looked at Su Zimo, who was close at hand, and said with an indifferent tone that was filled with confidence and certainty. Araki Takashi's strength had indeed lit up his eyes. This blazing purgatory was extremely powerful and was somewhat similar to a grotto heaven but also different. The Patriarch of the Academy guessed that this purgatory could even refine and suppress a quasi-emperor. However, if he wanted to use this purgatory to hurt him, it was still far from enough. The Patriarch of the Academy merely had to circulate his blood qi to defend against the impact of Wu Dao's purgatory. Up till now, everything was under his control. The Patriarch of the Academy truly could not imagine what other tricks Su Zimo had up his sleeves. When Su Zimo saw the Patriarch of the Academy reveal his true form, his eyes were calm and he did not seem surprised at all. In fact, he did not even stop in his actions of grabbing for the Tai Ching Jade Booklet. "How dare you try to snatch the Jade Booklet in front of me?" The Patriarch of the Academy looked at Su Zimo with interest and could not help but laugh. The Su Zimo before him looked stubborn and even naive. What was he trying to do? Even if he managed to obtain the 3 pure Jade Booklet, how useful would it be? Right then, Su Zimo's gaze shifted to the Patriarch of the Academy and he said slowly, "The outcome is still unknown. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Su Zimo's sleeves shook and a watery light burst forth from within, spraying towards the Patriarch of the Academy. The two of them were way too close. Before Su Zimo could finish, the watery mist had already spilled over. Poison? Or some other filthy evil object? Fufu. The Patriarch of the Academy shook his head gently and sighed. "You truly know nothing about the power of the Emperor realm. How can these external objects hurt me? The patriarch of the academy ignored the oncoming mist. He activated his chi and blood and directly passed through it. With a flip of his palm, he grabbed Su Zimo's head. His body and bloodline had been tempered by the power of a great emperor. Even the purgatory fire around him couldn't hurt him. What could this mist do? But just as he passed through the mist, he paused. Something was wrong. He'd just released his great emperor blood essence. Even the purgatory fire couldn't get close to him. Normally speaking, he should have been able to keep the mist at bay. But as he walked through the mist, he felt a wet feeling on his cheeks. His Confucian robe was also completely soaked. The blood essence of an emperor realm cultivator couldn't stop the mist? The patriarch of the academy frowned slightly. While looking surprised and doubtful, he caught a glimpse of the sarcasm on Su Zimo's face. Su Zimo grabbed the Great Purity Jade Book and retreated. At the same time, Wu Dao's true body put away the Jade Purity Jade Book and Prime Purity Jade Book and rushed over. You're still trying to escape? The patriarch of the academy suppressed his confusion and channeled his blood essence. Just as he was about to attack again, his expression changed. Intense pain. There was a sharp pain on his cheeks and the surface of his skin beneath his Confucian robe. His flesh was corroding furiously and his blood essence was depleting. The patriarch of the academy's body swayed and he grunted. How could this be? The patriarch of the academy could not understand. How could a mere mist threaten him? How could it even cause such severe injuries to him? Hell Fountain. This was the gift that Su Zimo had given to the patriarch of the academy. Su Zimo had long expected that this battle wouldn't be easy. However, he still had to attack the patriarch of the academy. Given the patriarch of the academy's cautiousness, if Wu Dao's true body cultivated to a higher realm and revealed an invincible stance, the patriarch of the academy would definitely not take the risk and expose his true body. The only way for him to have a chance of getting rid of all future troubles was to let the patriarch of the academy see a greater chance of victory. The patriarch of the academy was plotting against Su Zimo at all times. Wasn't Su Zimo the same? Since the patriarch of the academy used his 3 clones as bait, Su Zimo used himself as bait as well. It was difficult for him to guess what methods and schemes the patriarch of the academy would have. However, he was certain of one thing: no matter how complicated the patriarch of the academy's schemes were, the patriarch of the academy would definitely attack Qinglian's true body. That was his chance. However, this time round, Su Zimo spilled all the Hell's Nether Spring water that Wu Dao's true body brought back. The patriarch of the academy was severely injured and hurriedly channeled his blood chi in an attempt to suppress the damage of the Hell's Nether Spring water. However, the Hell's Nether Spring water targeted the bloodline of the witch race. Half of the bloodline of the witch race flowed in the body of the patriarch of the academy, and it was extremely difficult for him to suppress the Hell's Nether Spring water with his blood chi. If not for the fact that he had half of the human bloodline, he would have been half dead after so much Hell's Nether Spring water seeped into his body. Su Zimo retreated and distanced himself from the patriarch of the academy. However, Wu Dao's true body had already closed in on him. Boom! Wu Dao's true body punched the head of the patriarch of the academy. The patriarch of the academy's body was severely injured and covered in injuries. Right now, he was in his weakest state, and it was also the best opportunity for Wu Dao's true body. Heartless Heaven. The patriarch of the academy finally sensed a huge danger. He activated his essence spirit and shouted softly, directly opening up a world. Boom! Wu Dao's true body punched the world of the patriarch of the academy, causing an earth-shattering sound to be deafening. This side of the world only shook slightly, but the martial Dao true body's figure was also sent flying by the huge rebound force. The Arch realm controlled a world. The difference in strength between it and the Grotto Heaven realm was like heaven and earth. Just as the patriarch of the academy's Heartless Heaven was supported in the domain of Wu Dao's true body, the two forces collided and clashed. Wu Dao's purgatory only lasted for a moment before collapsing. Under the suppression of the world of Heartless Heaven, the 6 flames were extinguished one after another. As the saying goes, heaven and earth are heartless and treat all things as straw dogs. The patriarch of the academy named his world Heartless Heaven, which also showed his ambition to control the world. The greater success of the martial domain realm was already enough to suppress a quasi-emperor, but ultimately, it was impossible to cross the unreachable chasm of the Arch realm. Of course, the patriarch of the academy's current state was also not good. He was still in danger. At this moment, after the patriarch of the academy forced Wu Dao's true body to retreat, his eyes flashed with a mysterious brilliance. In an instant, his hands continuously formed seals, and finally countless seals merged into one. 3 pure qi. The patriarch of the academy softly muttered. At his fingertips, purple, green, and red rays of light suddenly merged into one, evolving into a wisp of mysterious gray aura. As soon as this grayish aura appeared, the surrounding heaven and earth trembled. The pupils of Wu Dao's true body contracted slightly. This mysterious aura seemed to have touched the origin of heaven and earth, and the power it emitted even made him wary. He subconsciously took out the prison-suppressing cauldron to protect himself. Wu Dao's true body didn't know what this mysterious aura was, but it was enough to kill him. 3 pure qi? Yunju had once mentioned to him in Avicii that after collecting the 3 pure qi jade book, there seemed to be more magical changes. Back then, the longevity emperor had comprehended this change, which allowed him to live for such a long time. The so-called 3 pure qi referred to the mysterious gray fog that the patriarch of the academy had just condensed. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.